Hey, what's going on, Apex fans? Welcome along to the GLL Masters Summer. My name is Onset, and joining me back in the booth is the magnificent Daniel Gaskin. And Dan, it is last chance qualifier for the EMEA regions. I'm super excited about this. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today, but I'm sure these teams are going to be under the pressure all day long, and they're going to be pretty nervy about what's going on today.
You see, I think I planned this well. I was in for week 1 and 2, and I got to see like how everyone started, and then I thought, you know what, I'll let someone else finish it all off. I'll come in for the last chance qualifiers and get everyone into the finals. Like, I'm pumped. I think this is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be a bit mental, if I'm completely honest, because we've got some of the like lower ranked teams now being mixed in with some of the better teams from the tournament. So we're going to see a lot of aggression, I feel, whilst other teams are going to try and play their kind of traditional slow meta here and there. And some teams are going to want to shake that up. And I think that's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think we're going to have certainly an interesting lobby today with a lot of teams playing a lot of different play styles. Obviously, we play across the 2 maps now. A lot of teams have got a little bit more time under their belt on the revamped Kings Canyon as well, and sort of found their way in their little niche of how they want to play that particular map. But I think you're right. I think there's going to be a lot of teams who could potentially upset some of those teams who are maybe expecting to make it through this lobby with something a little bit less traditional in the way that they approach this game. And I always think the first games on each map as well was super interesting to see exactly where people are dropping as well, because we love to see that contention in those first games. And one team, when something is contested, ends up with no points.
And that's scary. Like, if your drop location gets challenged, like early on, you kind of second guess yourself and you say, do we keep dropping here? Do we change things up? And this lobby is going to have a lot of that, I feel, because they're not going to necessarily know each other that well. But then, of course, they've been playing for several weeks now, 4 or 5 weeks or whatever it's been. Like, you will start to know where teams should be dropping, but they might have been avoiding other teams. But anyway, you can see the tournament schedule here. We are in the last chance qualifier. 4 weeks have gone, hasn't been 5. My memory did not serve me correctly. But this is the last chance now for players to get into those grand finals, Mark.
Yeah, it is indeed. And you can see those grand finals are coming up this weekend as well. So not a lot of time for these players to adjust and get used to the fact that they're going to play against some of these teams from this lobby as well. But today is the day, as you say, 4 weeks of action gone. We are down to the last chance day. And for some of those teams, it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise, having disappointed over the last few weeks. But these is today's schedule. You can see 6 matches as usual, starting off with 3 on World's Edge. And then we again move over to Kings Canyon, or as you like to call it, Kings Danyon.
I mean, I said that once, but okay, fair enough for bringing it up and making me feel like an idiot. But yeah, Kings Danyon was a thing because do you remember I had the jumper that was like looked like Kings Canyon? I don't think I've worn that jumper since because everyone bullied me, but it's fine. I really liked it, but everyone else hated it apparently.
I gave you massive props for that jumper. Like, I had nothing but positivity.
Just not on broadcast.
Just on broadcast, I'm always positive. Anyway, let's look at the prize pool and the point system down. We'll leave the jumper to one side because there's $100,000, of course, up for grab across the regions. And the point system, you can see it on the right-hand side. For everyone who has missed out and been under a rock, Dan, talk us through this point system and how it works.
Of course, it's a point system that you should be familiar with if you watch the ALGS and competitive Apex in general. It was a little bit different through weeks 1 to 4 because if you were in the Alpha lobby, you would get double points, and in the Bravo lobby, you just get normal points. Of course, that's not going to be the case here today. We just have one lobby in this last chance qualifier, but essentially you get placement points depending on where you finish, and you get 1 kill point per kill, obviously. So if you want to be ramping up those points, it's important you have a little bit of an aggressive style so that you can pick up those kill points as well as getting a good placement as well. And you can also see the prize money there as well. Money to be had for all of these players as they get closer and closer towards these finals.
As you say, closer and closer. It's just around the corner now. As I say, this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, is when the finals will be kicking off, not only for EMEA, but for the Americas region as well. So make sure to tune in later today for the Americas last chance qualifier to find out who those final 10 teams will be going into that grand final. But today, we're talking about EMEA. We've seen the 10 teams who have progressed so far, Dan. We talked a little bit about how we think the lobbies are going to play out a little bit. But one thing I want to talk about is how things have changed a little bit, in my opinion, recently. And I think the weeks of action that we've seen over the last, with the GLL Masters Summer have really helped supplement since the meta change and the changes to Legends. And we're kind of seeing teams now recognize situations in maps where they can't win a game and they start playing for KP. And I think that's a really interesting thing that's come in because a lot of teams are fighting now. A lot of teams are trying to take advantage of other teams and third parties as quick as possible to get those KP on the board. And I feel like teams are almost valuing those KP, especially early on in the game, more than those top placement points.
Yeah, I think that you can quite easily get caught out if you are just going for placement. If you're saying we're going to try and play for this end game, and then suddenly a circle doesn't go your way, then you're going to be blaming RNG a little bit later on. Whereas if you take matters into your own hands and you say, let's just play aggressive, let's go for kills, and then what happens, happens. We might be able to actually take an advantageous spot off of someone else. If they're in a good area for the next circle, if we push them here, then potentially we can win the game if we take that. And I like that people have been taking a couple more risks because I think it's needed in a game like Apex Legends.
Well, let's look at the teams and how everything has gone down over the first 4 weeks and how everything ended up looking. You can see here, this is the total leaderboard after match 24. So after the 4 weeks of action, this is where we are today, essentially. North, top of the group, and you can see the top 10 on your left-hand side have already made it through to the grand final. So congratulations to Gambit, Ad Hoc, Luminosity, Major Pushers, Nasky Strafe and Dell Alliance, Flavor of the Month, SJP2, and Triumph. But the last chance qualifier, the bottom 10 from that Alpha division will be involved, and you can see those on the right-hand side of your screen now.
Yeah, so the total leaderboard just basically, it doesn't matter if you played in Alpha, if you played in Bravo, you were still accumulating points towards this leaderboard. And if you finished outside of that top 10, then you were in the last chance qualifier. But of course, if you finished in the bottom 10 on this leaderboard, you don't even get the chance at the last chance qualifier. And that is not a good place to be. Biggest takeaway from this particular screen, when we're talking about the teams that are going to be in this, Flex Gang had 100 kills. Like, they were the third highest kill total out of anyone, and they are still in the last chance qualifier. So I'm excited to see what they have to offer today. These are the other 10 teams that, of course, going to be in the last chance qualifier, where it says from 21 to 30, and then we had to say goodbye from those teams that were in 31 to 40, which is a bit sad. There was a couple of teams on there that I really liked watching. BDS Esport, for example, I remember they had a great week one, but they just weren't able to capitalize on that and keep pushing. Elite Gaming RSA as well, the South African team, a shame to see them go. But, you know, you win some, you lose some, and we had to say goodbye to some teams, Mark.
Hey, if you can't get it done across 4 weeks of action, then
exactly,
sorry, but you need to come back and try again next time. That's all we're going to say on that one. But those teams on the left-hand side of your screen are going to make up the other 10 teams, like you mentioned, who are going to be in our last chance qualifier today. And some big teams in there as well, the likes of Wigers, Lazarus, really big names in the competitive Apex scene. And Dan, this is the lobby. This is the 20 teams that we have who are going to be going up against each other today. And just remember, only 10 can make it through to our grand finals this weekend. And that, looking at that, that's a stacked lobby still.
It is a stacked lobby. I mean, we have to really be focusing on those that came very close to getting into the top 10 naturally. So Outsiders, Finalized, Flex Gang, they are the three closest teams to actually getting into the finals normally. But then there's also a couple of teams that throw a curveball or two in here. Na'Vi, for example, I wouldn't expect them to be down here after looking at all the rosters in week one. I still think a team like Lava City Boys can really upset as well. Like, they are quite low down, or were quite low down in the overall rankings. I understand that regional difference makes things sometimes a little bit tougher, but I certainly think they could shake up this lobby as well. Third Impact, Wigers. I mean, there are plenty of teams here that have the potential to just stomp on this lobby if they play their best.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. I really do feel like game number one is going to be important here for a lot of teams, because as I say, it's, you know, week to week, you're kind of thinking, okay, you're looking ahead to next week, right? We can make up for our mistakes that we made in week one, in week two, etc., etc. But now, as I say, you can see at the top of your screen, this is the last chance for these teams. If things go wrong in games 1 and 2, you're chasing the pack and you have to change your playstyle. You have to adapt and you have to basically go all in and you know, throw the kitchen sink at the lobby to try and make it into our grand finals. And that just sets it up. We've already seen in the first few weeks some crazy game 5s and 6 on Kings Canyon, where teams have been trying to make up that kill differential and, you know, playing super aggressive and hard pushing teams to try and get those KP on the board. Just imagine what it's going to be like today in game 5 and 6 for those teams who are outside that top 10. They're going to be going crazy. They're going to be pushing. They're going to say, oh, do you know what? W key is my favorite letter, and that's the one I'm going to be pressing for this whole game.
Especially when, as I say, you might not have as much structure in this lobby as you would in like the alpha lobbies we were seeing. I know that with the promotion and relegation, there were changes here or there, and sometimes one team would shake it up and kind of change the meta, as it were, in that particular lobby. But I do feel like this is going to be the most sporadic one out of all that we've seen, because it's going to be chaos, and for that same reason that you say, because teams need now to push. They need to get the points, otherwise they're just going to find themselves out of the tournament. And You don't want to get to the last chance qualifier, be given another opportunity to get to the finals and fall short yet again, because that's not a good look.
And I think one team that I'm certainly going to be looking at in this lobby is one that you've already mentioned for numerous reasons, to be honest with you. And that roster is Na'Vi. I think when we go all the way back to the preseason invitational and we were like, wow, look at Na'Vi. They're playing, you know, on the finals day, they were playing some incredible stuff. But they haven't seemed to progress from there. And if anything, I've seen a little bit of a regression in Na'Vi and what they've been able to achieve. And, you know, sometimes they're not making the finals when we're seeing the ALGS tournaments, and they're always on the cusp, but they don't seem to be moving forward. So I feel like a tournament like this in a last chance qualifier is a really big moment here for Na'Vi. If they don't make this final, then I think some questions have to be asked of the roster. And I really hope that they do, because I think they're all amazing people. I think they're all amazing players, but there's just something missing for me. And I think when you go through those weeks where you're not performing, that confidence drops, right? And you start questioning yourself, you start changing things. I want to see the Na'Vi evolve. I want to see them be aggressive. I want to see them take fights, because they've got incredible team fighting skill here. And Na'Vi, for me, if they have a good week here, they are a dangerous team in that grand finals this weekend.
I think you're right. I think it's make or break for them, really. Like, you want to focus on the positives and say, okay, well, if they get through this last chance qualifier, maybe this could be the resurgence of Na'Vi, and this could be the chance where they can show out everyone what they can do in these high tier lobbies. But it's the mindset. It's how they are in this last chance qualifier. They haven't already qualified. When they started this tournament, they probably looked at everyone that was available in the teams and they said, yeah, okay, we should be getting into that automatic top 10 into finals. If their confidence has dropped because of that, are they going to be playing with that same aggression, or are we going to see them be a little bit more passive? And if they are being a bit more passive, other teams are going to take advantage of that. Like, if they see a nervous team kind of ducking in and out of fights, not necessarily taking those gunfights, then they are going to say, look, let's pounce on them, let's take those spots off them, let's get these kill points. And then suddenly you might end up being pushed by one or two teams and getting third-partied, and then you're out of match 1. Suddenly you're out of match 2, and then you're digging deep to try and get back into match 3. And I don't want to see Na'Vi in that situation. I mean, you could say the same for any team, really, in this last chance qualifier, but you highlight them because they are a team that we probably expected already to be in the final.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly there. I think we're just waiting on one more team to get into our first lobby so we can kick things off for you guys. We don't want to keep you waiting. We want to get straight into the Apex action for today. But we start off on World's Edge, Dan. You know, a lot of people are saying that this is a little bit of a more competitive map is the best way to put it, a little bit more consistent. What are your thoughts on starting on World's Edge? Would you rather start on Kings Canyon, or do you think starting on World's Edge, settle the lobby down a little bit and then move over to the chaos that is Kings Canyon?
I mean, I said this in week 1 that I would have liked to see we kind of change it each week. So first week you start on World's Edge, second week you start on Kings Canyon, third week yada yada yada. But I quite like finishing on Kings Canyon because it is a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more hectic, and when you are chasing those points and you are trying to get a little bit further up the leaderboard, Kings Canyon kind of provides you with that opportunity to do so.
Well, here we go then, ladies and gents. No hanging around here today for the GLL Masters Summer. It is last chance qualifier day, and we are kicking things off here with Outsiders, another team who have performed incredibly well so far in the ALGS, but find themselves in this position today where it's not just about performing in this game, they've got to perform across the 6 to get into our grand finals. And we can already see the Pathfinder beacon being hit, and it looks like it's going to be a little circle towards the north of the map, potentially finishing around that little compound just outside of the entrance to that northern tunnel.
The teams in that northwest haven't even landed yet. They don't even know what a good day they're going to have, as there's going to be some early shots, and unfortunately for this Pathfinder, is not going to have anything to protect himself with. Does he get? How did he get away there? Like, vibing, you got to take your boy down. Pathfinder doing his best, like, John Wick impression of being able to avoid everyone.
I think the biggest thing to note here is we have 18 squads left. One of those teams that's gone out is Na'Vi, and the other one that's gone out, I just missed it actually in the bottom right hand of my screen, but another big name in our lobby, so already some congestion, and there it is, thank you to production. Flex Gang out of the lobby here in game number 1, and now it's 17 squads remaining. That's finalized are going to drop, and look at what's kicking off here on World's Edge. I said we were going to settle into things today. We've already lost 4 teams within the first few minutes of this game, and if this is anything to expect, I'm looking forward to today's action.
Yeah, I told you these lobbies are going to be nuts. So that's finalized who were in 12th in the overall leaderboards, Flex Gang who were in 13th, and Na'Vi who were in 15th. So that's 3 of our top 5 teams in this lobby already out in match number 1. we started with outsiders, and I think quite rightly, because they were the closest to actually getting those automatic qualification spots in that top 10. They just missed out by the barest of all margins. But unfortunately, they have to play in the last chance qualifier. And I wonder how that's going to affect their confidence as well. When you do come so close, sometimes that's actually worse than kind of just scraping through.
Another team who's lost a player there is Caller Esports. You can see, lost the Pathfinder. So fighting going on around here in Skyhook as well. And Skyhook's one of those areas that sometimes we do see multiple teams landing due to the fact that there is a lot of real estate to be had, and you can split this location due to the multiple buildings and the multiple loot paths that you can take. But 15 squads remaining. We've lost 5 squads already in our first few minutes of this game. And that is pretty much unheard of at the moment. And having a look at our map overhead, you can see, finally, there's a few teams with a little bit of space between them. So we're going to have some teams actually able to rotate and make it towards this next circle before everyone in the lobby decides they want to fight and they want to die.
The interesting fact is going to be those teams who have already found themselves in residence in the northwest area of the map up near Skyhook, because they will get kind of the evidence that the circle is going to be moving very close to Skyhook. And then as soon as they have caught wind of that, they'll be trying to rotate. And we might just see 4 or 5 teams all trying to rotate to the same spot at the same time, because you want to get there first, right? You want to be able to take residency in that area where you think the circle is going to finish, so you get the advantageous position. But then you've got the other teams that are going to be coming from the east side of the map, who are also going to be trying to rotate in early to avoid teams they think are coming from the south. So we're going to also kind of end up with a bit of a kind of just combusted middle ground where everyone is going to be fighting for this one spot, and that means we might lose a couple of teams in quick time. And that is scary, because when you get those fights where there's 4 or 5 teams involved, it's very hectic, it's very difficult, and it all comes down to your communication. The team is going to have to be on point. You're going to have to be saying who's looking where, who you're going to be focusing on, and that's where a lot of the teams kind of stand out from others, who has those better comms.
Well, Exorcism are the team who have prime position, in my personal opinion, on the map at the moment, set up in this building just to the north of Fragment West. But, Dan, I've got a question for you, and I'm going to test you here. I hate to put you on the spot, but what is 15 take away 1?
14.
And that is how many teams we have in the lobby. So we have already lost another team here. 6 teams have been eliminated before round 1 has even got to close. And it's Purge who are out of the lobby. My voice cracked because I'm shocked at the teams that we've seen. That almost looks upside down to me at the moment, that team tracker graphic. You expect to see the likes of Purge, Third Impact, Dead Inside, Finalized, Na'Vi, and FlexScan at the top of the leaderboard. But no, and look at this, Caller have just been taken out as well. What is going on in this game, number 1?
They are literally all the teams that were in the top half of the leaderboard when it came to this lobby. These were alpha teams that were getting into the alpha lobbies. Sometimes they were dropping out of them, but they were still performing well in these alpha lobbies. So this is a big surprise. You know what? We haven't really been able to see what they've done. So we don't know whether this is them kind of dropping on each other and taking early fights with one another, or whether they're just getting caught on rotation in these early stages. But either way, not good news for a lot of our best teams, really, in this lobby. But quite exciting news as a viewer, because it means that we're going to get these topsy-turvy lobbies where some of the better teams now are going to have to step up when we go into match 2 and match 3, probably equaling a little bit more aggression, meaning more gunfights, meaning Daniel's happy.
We've almost lost half the lobby before round 1 has closed. I am not used to this kind of madness. I need a little bit of serenity in my life. I need a little bit of calm. These players, 11 squads. I don't know what's happening anymore, ladies and gents. I'm sorry, I can't call this. There's 11 squads remaining. Half the lobby has nearly disappeared. And we're out. Apparently, the lobby is being remade. Apparently, there is an issue. I'm not losing my mind. The teams aren't losing their mind. I can calm down again and I can get myself together. Dan, I'm kind of happy, to be honest with you, because I don't think I've ever seen half a lobby wiped in the first, before the first circle has actually closed. So apologies to everyone who's watching that you've had to watch me slowly
have a mental breakdown,
grey gears unwind in front of you. But yeah, it's time for a little bit of calm and serenity, like I asked for. So thank you.
I mean, you said something must be up and something must be wrong with that amount of teams dropping out, and you were right. Clearly there was something that wasn't quite working out, and we will get the lobby remade. Yeah, I mean, you say good, but I was kind of excited to see what would happen because we'd seen that many early losses. I didn't know why. We didn't see any fights really happening. I was trying to keep an eye on the kill feed, but it was hard to kind of keep up with what was going on. and there was no real reason as to why these teams were dropping. So it makes a little bit of sense, and it means that you'll be okay, Mark. It means that we can go back to normality now. We can restart the lobby. Everyone can get to their drop locations, and you don't have to worry about all the good teams getting knocked out in the early stage.
I wasn't worried about that. I was just worried about how we could probably be done by about 7 o'clock local time, because it was going to take 45 minutes to get through all 6 games if they were all played at that pace. But yeah, we will obviously update you all as soon as we get word on exactly what happened in that lobby, but we'll try and get it back underway. But the interesting thing was we did have some congestion off the start, or congestion, which is the actual word that I should use there, not just a made-up one like I used there, which is interesting for me because the lobby reset kind of gives those teams who might have been contested off drop here the opportunity to play a little bit later on their drop and try and see where's open and kind of adjust to that. So we might have a case now where essentially we have what we have at the start of game 2 a lot of the time, where teams have their own POI to loot up and move from. But yeah, I think that maybe that game 1, it's kind of shocked me. It's put me on the back foot a little bit, and I'm kind of glad that there was something wrong because it felt wrong.
I can tell you what was wrong is FlexGang never connected to the lobby. So I imagine that a lot of teams saw that, realized the lobby was probably going to be restarted, and kind of went gung-ho and just kind of took some fights, which makes they go full yeet, and it makes a lot of sense why we lost a lot of people. But the lobby is going to be remade for FlexGang, which is good because FlexGang is one of the teams I highlighted in our mini pre-show. They had 100 kills across the total 4 weeks, which was 3rd highest out of anyone. So, like, I know they were kind of tiptoeing between Alpha Division and Bravo Division, and in the Bravo lobbies, we did see some teams kind of steamroll and pick up a lot of kills, but still, like, the fact they were able to be that high up in the kill leaderboards and not make it into the top 10 makes me question how their placements were, and maybe they weren't good enough at getting to the end game. But if they can get to the end game, and if they can still find those kill points, then they should be a scary team in this last chance qualifier.
And again, it's something that teams should be looking to address throughout the weeks, right? The fact that we have week after week after week of action here, and there's other tournaments going on. We have ALGS tournaments the weekend as well. These teams now, we kind of got no excuse, in my personal opinion, for making those consistent, repetitive mistakes, right? You are playing tournaments almost, every other day at the moment in Apex. There's so many opportunities to compete against some of the best in the world. So I'm kind of keeping my eye out for some of those teams that I think have made those repetitive mistakes. And you say, like, FlexGang, incredible slaying power on that team, incredible fragging power. They seem to be winning, as I say, a lot of the team fights that they're in. But why aren't they getting to those end circles? Why aren't their placements as good as they can be if they are winning so many team fights on their way to those last moments of the game? I think it's something that we certainly should be keeping an eye on as these games roll on.
Yeah, because if they aren't getting to the end game, then there's no point of getting those kills, right? You're just ruining everyone else's day. And I know that's fine. Some people like to play that way. They like to ruin everyone else's game, but you want to be focusing on your own game. They should, though. I mean, when I look at this lobby and I look at the teams in it, I think FlexGang should be okay. Because with that raw amount of, like, slaying power, even if your placement points are bad, you're still going to get enough where you finish in the top 10 and get to the finals, right? But if they lose that slaying power, or if, like, one fight goes wrong, or if someone's, like, out of the loop and kind of rushes off on their own and thinks the rest of the team is with them, then suddenly without that slaying power, they don't have the backup of being able to place well. One of the reasons why the likes of North did so well is because they would always have one player who would happily rat things out and successfully do so as well if they were to lose a couple of players early on. And I feel like that is a skill that maybe we don't talk about enough in Apex Legends, is that one player having the ability to know how to rotate as an individual rather than looking to rotate as a team. Where are the safest spots to go? Where are the best hiding spots? When do you actually pull that trigger? How is your trigger discipline? There's all these different things that come into the equation when you are ratting things out.
Yeah, just to touch on that point as well, I think it's something that maybe a lot of people who are watching competitive Apex for the first time as well don't understand is how difficult that end game is as well. It's one thing to get to the end game, but the best in the world are those who consistently make those correct decisions in the end game. And, a team fight in itself has 1,000 different decisions that everyone is having to make in that moment, in that instance of the battle. But end game is where the best of the best are separated from the rest, in my opinion. And a good example of that and teams improving, you can take one from EMEA and you can take one from North America. The one from EMEA, of course, is North. North were a very good team, but they have improved so much over the last 4 weeks to the fact where they not only finished top of the EMEA region here and the GLL Masters Summer, but they also won the Super Regional for the EMEA region this weekend. So North's continual, improvement as a team, that adaptation to get to that end game and make those decisions correctly has to be commended. And you look at the Americas region, Aim Assist for me are the perfect example of that. They won a Super Regional, and they said themselves, all controller players, initially when they started playing, a little bit brainless. They were just pushing people, and trying to fight them and, winning those fights a lot of the time because of their gun skill, but they didn't have that end game knowledge. They didn't have that experience under their belt that pushes you from those, top 10 positions into that top 5, into that championship position. And I think when we get to those end games, a lot of people are going to be watching, and you can see the moment that a good or bad decision is made in that end game. And that is what separates, as I said, the best from those who are very, very good. And that improvement, again, North Aim Assist have made that. I think a lot of the teams here in this lobby are ones who are going to have to do that as well.
Yeah, but a lot of it comes down to being able to actually practice, get in those scrim lobbies and put yourselves in those situations. If your playstyle isn't typically playing for placements and it's going for kills, you might not find yourself with a full 3 in that end game as often as you'd like. So you need to actually change your playstyle in scrims so that you can get to that end game, so you can experience the end game and learn a little bit more. Like, you need to be seeing where those circles go. Like, where are the tendencies of where the circle's going to pull? Where have you seen that circle finish before? What is the best way of positioning yourself to get to that circle where you think it's going to be? A lot of it comes down to prediction, but a lot of it comes down to experience as well, like you quite rightly said. And a lot of these teams today are going to have to kind of play with their own knowledge and their own experience, but they're also going to have to be mindful of some teams may not have experienced it as much as them. So they might do things a little bit off-piste, and they might do things a little bit differently, which might shake things up. Because as much as we talk about kind of drop locations and how people might change things, and that might change the meta and whatnot, and people might be a bit more aggressive, when it comes to that final circle, if one team is playing very, very differently, then people are going to kind of be thrown by that. They're going to be saying, wait, hold on, why is this team pushing us here? We were in a position where no one should be pushing us. We should be the pushies, and that could ruin everything. But we are going to start the next lobby, and I am unfortunately being told we're not going to have Flex Gang. I don't know if they're not playing at all or they're just not playing in this particular lobby, but they are not going to be competing in match 1, which I think is a shame. And I hope that changes as this tournament goes on. But either way, I'm just happy that we're back into the lobby and we can see where this circle is going to go with, yet again, an early Pathfinder.
Well, let's take our time to take a deep breath, to relax a little bit and keep an eye on that kill feed to see if exactly the same thing happens here. But as you say, we are going to see the Pathfinder beacon being hit here by Yastilta. And you can see that couldn't be a more central zone if it tried. Taking in a lot of Fragment West there, a lot of the train tracks as well around that choke. So you're going to see the pings coming in here, maybe across that bridge right between Fragment East and Fragment West is where that circle could be finishing. But this is going to be a pretty comfortable rotation for a lot of teams. Coming from the edges of the map, haven't got too far to go for all those teams. It kind of sets us up for a nice game 1, having one of those central circles. Just a note, as I say, a simple rotation for a lot of teams. They're going to have a little bit of space to work with, aren't going to be going through those chokes and being held out too much. So let's see how this lobby plays out a little bit. Hopefully a little bit slower for my sake, for my brain's sake. It's a hot day here and it isn't taking me too much to get riled up. But as I say, for Dan, he's probably not hoping the same. I don't want to speak for you, Dan, but I know that you like those early fights.
I mean, you can speak for me all you want. That's the reason why I'm here, Mark, is I am here to just shake things up. That's what happens. I mean, if you remember weeks 1 and 2, they were a little bit more aggressive than the weeks where I wasn't here as well. I feel like people just want to entertain me, and that's okay. I like entertainment. I like early fights. But this does look like your more normal game on World's Edge, Mark. We're not getting those intense early action fights that we saw in the previous kind of fake lobby. Instead, people are far more concerned about looting up and thinking about how they're going to get into this central circle. And central circles I always find are quite interesting because, as you quite rightly mentioned, it should be a comfortable rotation for the majority of teams. And it's kind of a race. Who wants to get there first and who's going to position themselves? And what was that been? Jesus
Anybody
Christ.
want a white armor? Anybody?
That was the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, all right, do it 2 for 2. I bet there won't be 4 in that next one. But yeah, as I said, I think it's just a little bit of a race who can get to kind of the most beneficial point on the map in the earliest position so that they can kind of lock it out a little bit and stop teams that are going to be rotating in a little bit later.
Yeah, I think the one thing here for teams who are rotating from the edge towards Fragment is, Fragment has arguably the most real estate outside of Skyhook, I would say, between the two, probably pretty similar as far as places to hold down, places to locate. You have all those multi-story buildings, you have all those, areas that you can hold down. You've got Market right in the middle of it as well. There's so many playable spots here that usually we do see, around 16, 17 teams getting to that end circle. But the issue is, if you are the latest team to rotate, you have all those teams that are going to be looking outwards, right? Looking for those late rotating teams. And it's not just one team who are going to be gatekeeping you at the gates of Fragment. It's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams who are looking at you, looking for those KP. So you have to be quick on your rotation here. And I do feel like any teams who are a little bit slow here might struggle to get inside. And they're going to have a little bit of a rough time as they do so.
The gates of Fragment. It sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings or something like that.
Doesn't it?
You just can see
No,
just outside of Mordor. But I mean, to be fair, like Fragment is a pretty scary place to try and rotate into because of the amount of vision that is available for those teams who have already set up camp. And we are kind of seeing all of the teams slowly but surely make their way into their most desirable position. Like, people will have positions they like to actually sit in, but we're going to see an early fight here with a lot of burns happening. Lazarus looking to get involved.
Yeah, Lazarus putting down some nice shots as Ida does move in on the Wraith and trying to chase him down. You saw the damage was done, and there is a portal being set down. You can see Roger Bodger tried to nip through that portal himself and finish off one of those kills, but it looks like that team has managed to back them off a little bit. The Gibraltar has been downed in this battle, though, and will be taken out. So we do have some KP on the board there for Lazarus. The push was worthwhile as they take Blood Rain down, and now it's up to Streamy and his teammate who has 1 HP. And no shields to speak of, Andre Strong, to try and get away from this situation. Maybe think about rotating back for that banner. But I'm sure Lazarus are more than aware of that situation. But he does have the chopper. And we all love a bit of chopper action.
Over the top, both is that statement and the team we were watching. But they were our worst team out of everyone in this lobby. They were 30th. They just got into this last chance qualifier. But that doesn't mean they don't have the chance to actually get into the finals, but it just means that they were struggling a little bit in the lobby. So I want to keep an eye on them, especially the fact that they've only got 2 players now, because that's going to make things increasingly difficult getting to this last lobby as Fenerbahce Esports were on board with. And I remember week 1, I was very excited to see what this team had to offer. And I know they struggled here and there, but I still think they have a chance of doing some damage here, but they are going to be pushed. There is going to be aggression coming out of YDN here.
And bad news, everybody, because Big Chunk Funk has been taken down, I believe it was, which is making me sad because I love that name. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, it rolls off the tongue. A little bit like a marble. But YDN Esports, unfortunately, can't get the finish here, and they've managed to escape. Don't ask. It's not worth it. It's not worth anyone's time. Na'Vi getting involved in the kill feed as well, as one of the players from Weigers will be taken down. Rube is going to be taken down by Faizu. So now we are starting to see a little bit of action, and this Harvester rotation moving through this area is such a tough thing to do with the elevation and the narrow hallways, and some nice shots there from Draconian with the triple take. It's just going to slow this push down a little bit. But speaking of Na'Vi, it's all going to be up to Claws here, and I think this might be a 1v1, and Na'Vi are going to be eliminated. Weigers clutch up in that moment, and they will be able to get the res here on the Wraith as well, although he's in a little bit of a open space here, and they have to be careful, but they're going to get back up to a full complement. Gibraltar Bubble will go down as well to make that a little bit of a safer job for them. But Na'Vi, the team I was talking about that needed to perform in this game 1 here, Dan, out of action.
Yeah, I mean, we joined that fight a little bit late, so we can't really say whether it was Na'Vi being the aggressors there or whether they were pushed upon. And it's a shame to see them eliminated so early, but at the same time, it means that we're going to see them kind of change their style into match 2, which always makes things exciting. But Wyvern are one of those, Weigers are one of those teams that I feel like could surprise people here. I was always keeping an eye on them like week 1, week 2, and seeing how they were doing in the Bravo lobby. Were they going to be able to progress, get into that Alpha lobby? And the fact that they were there or thereabouts each week had me thinking, right, what can this team do to actually get to that next level? Like, what is it they are doing consistently wrong as to why they're not performing in ways that we've seen them perform in previous tournaments? But it does seem like they were able to find their groove towards week 3 and week 4. And I don't know whether that was down to them just kind of changing their comp a little bit, because I know in weeks 1 and 2, we saw a lot of teams experiment with comps and change things up, try and suit like the American meta, try and get a little bit more aggressive with the likes of Revenant and whatnot. And then people kind of realized that on World's Edge, Revenant maybe wasn't working as much as it was on King's Canyon. So potentially that was a reason for them. But either way, they've been able to get some early frags here, some early kills to actually get some kill points. And it's on Na'Vi as well. So that's big for them.
YDN Esports here trying to hold this team out on the edge of circle, as you can see, towards Thermal. And it's going to be Weigers as well, having to make a wide rotation here and trying to get away from this push that is coming in. They do have the defensive bombardment here from the Gibraltar to just give themselves a little bit of space to work with, and it looks like it is going to be a fairly comfortable rotation for them to get away from that push from YDN. They're going to back down as well, and maybe they realize, and maybe they don't, that Weigers have made that rotation into Thermal, but they're going to make a little bit of a different rotation here, moving through that circle towards Tree, wide up towards Sorting Factory. So decisions being made here for YDN to move away from that fight and try and continue their path towards Fragment.
Yeah, a little bit of a detour, and I feel like that's probably because if they took that fight, they would then be pushing into a choke, and they would have been making themselves quite known if they took that fight as well, with the amount of noise that would come out of their guns. So I think this is a smart rotation from them, as we have a look at Team Purge and their rotation as well. One of the teams running a Caustic, so they would quite like to get into this circle sooner rather than later. Caustic definitely one of those legends that you want for late game, and if you can get into those positions, if you can get into that real estate, he can be a real nuisance. And I like it. I like seeing Caustic in lineup still.
A little bit of a surprise to me to see KS20 on the Wraith as well. A little bit of change. He was playing the Caustic for this Team Purge team, but they've decided to just switch things up a little bit. Maybe he was feeling himself and just wanted to play on the Wraith, or maybe someone was thinking that he was the player who was going to play it a little bit better. But we'll have to see what happens here for Team Purge. Same composition, just a little bit of a shift in who's going to be playing which legend. So we'll see if that plays out for them. But here's my man, Pinky, Tinky Finky, or just Pinky Finky. He shortened it. He's a little bit like Prince. He just changes his name all the time. But it's good to see him in the lobby for Fenerbahce Esports, who have managed to get the player back up to be involved in this game number one. So full compliment here for Fenerbahce. They're going to have to move through this choke, the central choke between Harvester and Fragment. They're going to be hoping that there isn't a team sneaking themselves up here and going to be causing them too much damage.
Yeah, it's always very difficult when you do push through a choke, just because you have to be aware of what could be kind of through that choke and up the hill, and also kind of trying to work out who's behind you and are you going to be shot in the back at the same time. So you have to keep an eye on every single angle, and that's why it's very important to have certain roles in the team, like know when you're in these positions, who's going to be looking where. Again, it all comes down to communication and making sure you talk to teams, as Pinky Finky is going to try and get some cheap shots and try and scout some people across the map, and well, he's scouted them in both ways. He's both managed to put some damage down, but he's also given that information to his team, and he will actually chuck out his ultimate and will give the chance to the rest of the team to push if they would like here. But I think this is more of a stalling tactic to try and get through this choke.
Yeah, it's actually Team Purge. I think we're trying to chase them down for a long time there in Harvester. Kind of lost their bearings about where they actually had got to, Fenerbahce Esports, but Purge have decided to back down now, and maybe they'll be second-guessing their rotation, as they did see the fighting going down ahead of them between Fenerbahce Esports and the team that was up on the tracks just to their left here, to the west. And now you're going to see, finalized is that team who's trying to hold out Fenerbahce here, but the portal will go out to try and rotate ahead of finalized here. And again, like we were talking, if you can't win these fights on the edge, and Fragment is available, and you could see a space to get into, the best thing to do is get ahead of this team and try and out-rotate them so that they have to move in towards you. Gatekeep then, turn the Gatekeeper, like you said, into the Gatekeepee. As finalized here, just struggling to land some of these shots here, Blast with the Wingman. But it'll be interesting to see how Fenerbahce Esports managed to rotate out of this position, as we do see a double 47 coming in from the Wingman, finally managing to connect with some of those shots. If they're going to be pushed here, Fenerbahce, or is Purge going to make their move behind them?
Decent shots coming out. Taboo just healing himself up as well with the Phoenix kit. Can we all take a moment to just appreciate the fact that Mark is very calm, because this is a more normal game of Apex Legends as well. Thank God he's not going to be tearing his hair out. Otherwise, we could have been looking at quite a disastrous situation. But we're going to see yet another ultimate being popped here by Gibby. And again, it's just being able to kind of push here and survive, really, because they were pushing through No Man's Land. And just like No Man's Land, he gets hit, what should I say, by so many different things there. Bombs, bullets, everything was flying. And it will mean he falls down. Chunk Funk and Cozy falling in the kill feed. As we move across to Finalized, who, well, their rotation is slightly more comfortable, but again, a lot of open ground to get through now with this next circle.
Yeah, they're going to be looking for KP here, because if they don't pick up KP in this situation, they're going to have a really tough rotation in. And you can see exactly what happened to Fenerbahce Esports as they tried to make that move in towards Fragment. Not only one team was shooting them, but multiple teams with angles. And one of those teams is Lava City Boys, sat up on top of the construction building here in Fragment West. And you can see there's some loot down there as well. But just looking across the board here, you can see a purple, 2 blues, and plenty of ammo to work with as well. And to be honest with you, pretty well looted here, Lava City Boys. You've got the Skull Piercer, purple mag on the wingman. So they're pretty comfortable as far as weaponry is concerned. You just have to wonder if they're pinging that loot. Is it just a case of meds that they don't have in their hands at the moment? But 17 squads remaining as we have a minute left on this third ring before that starts to move in. And there is Ratcam. There's our first Ratcam of the day. And Dan, I've actually prepared a poem for you for about Ratcam.
All right, interesting. Okay, go for it.
Ready? All right. Ratcam, Ratcam, last player alive. You look oh so lonely as you try to survive.
Oh, it ended there.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was expecting like
there's a game going on. I don't want to take up too much time.
I mean, it was great. No disrespect. It was lovely. I just was expecting better from you. Expecting, not better, longer.
Well, I mean, true feelings came out there. You said what you said.
Sorry.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. You know.
That's right. You can work on it. And by finals, I think you'll get a good poem. As now we're going to see Galatarix try and survive, but he will fall. And that's going to be another team eliminated off the server. And we're down to just 16 now, Mark. And this circle is getting tighter and tighter. Less place to be able to reside. Execute over the top, and Na'Vi eliminated. And as a reminder, Flex Gang didn't start in this lobby.
Fenerbahce Esports have managed to survive. They had a little bit of a difficult time as they were the meat in the sandwich between two teams in that choke area. However, they haven't managed to get inside that next circle. Weiger's very comfortable at the moment inside this circle as well. Just for a moment as we see the thermite blowing that door off. So it looks like a team might be trying to push them here. But a Kraber in hands here for Weigers is going to be big. If they can ping one of these players who might just be peeking through a window and get a knock, it will give them that opportunity to push in a 3v2 situation. And you can see here, Crypt is desperate to try and just poke out and land one of these shots, but doesn't want to give away the fact that he has that Kraber, because those players will back down and not show themselves. 2 shots, giving that Watson a haircut. But unfortunately for Crypt, he isn't going to land that headshot and get that knock, so that team in the building will be surviving.
I mean, fair enough, like, to have the confidence to repeat. I don't know if it's stupidity or just bravery, but either way, I respect it, depending on whichever it is. I think that you should go for another poem when we do see another rat, because I feel like that one didn't... Well, it didn't go so well, did it? The rat died straight away, so I feel like your poem almost cursed him. It was
more of a curse than a poem.
Cast a curse. Yeah, it was indeed. It was like you wished it upon him. But teams now starting to try and work out who is where. That's always the point of this time in the game, where you kind of use those audio cues, you work out who's residing in what building, where you're going to potentially be pushed from, who you can actually push. Can you take a building off someone else? Can you safely get out of your next building? As Lazarus, some decent wingman shots there. 47 just tags well, but can't connect for a second. And yes, okay, they're going to let themselves known to other teams, but they're also being a nuisance and just trying to make people use up a little bit of those meds they might have been able to gather at the start of the game.
Well, now you're going to see the difficulty of these fragment circles. So many different angles. If you try and push a team who is trying to push your building and you overexpose yourself to some of those angles, then you can be taken down. Luckily for Lava City Boys, they have complete control of the top of the construction building, so we'll be able to punch their Pathfinder Shaj-Il back into this safe area where they can get the res up. But they do have Devotion to work with as well, and Finalize now making their move in, but they're still just outside of the circle here. But I think they might just about be in by this rock. Would have to have a little zoom in to see if they are safe. But Nookit's coming under fire himself, and you can see a team to their north who are actually moving up on them here as they have done that damage. So they're going to have to be very, very careful with these next few steps here, because they make one wrong, this could be the end of their game number 1.
Yeah, got to be really careful here, just going back and forth through that portal, trying to be as sneaky as possible, trying to get away, trying to heal up before they eventually decide when they're going to push in. Of course, the Gibby bubble coming in to give them a little bit of protection, but it's not going to last long. And Lava City Boys, their eyes are firmly set on this squad now. So there is no easy escape here. And I think the squad they are shooting are just going to have to hope, really, that Lava City Boys get third-partied or someone else shoots them from elsewhere. But they are able to get behind that little blue truck, which means they might be able to just get away. So not the end of the world for them just yet here on World's Edge.
Well, it's going to be a circle that finishes actually, I believe, in quite an open area here to the north of where you're seeing that next circle potentially close. So teams who are in Fragment East at the moment are going to have to make their way across to Fragment West. And this is where we're going to see so many teams get involved in fights and so many teams start to drop as well, as we now go down to 14 squads just like that. Click your fingers and half the lobby will disappear. 13 squads now as bodyguards are set up on the 4-story building here in Fragment West. And they have to move as well. You can see the zip line set up for them, trying to clear a path out and make sure there's not going to be anyone who's going to be contesting them when they do drop. But the question is, do they walk in with a circle here? Do they take that zip line? As we do see a lonely looking Pathfinder creeping up in that construction building, but he's going to be pretty comfortable at the moment, but he is going to have to move along with the rest of the lobby as Jazz is trying to land some sentinel shots onto this team inside of Market.
At the moment, he's just scouting them out. Hasn't actually taken a pop at anyone. He doesn't really need to. He doesn't need to give the position away because look where they are. Dead center of this next circle. They are in prime position right now, whereas a lot of the other teams are going to have to walk up into open space. So I feel like that is a team that potentially has the chance to win this game. As there is another rat, and I feel like I should give
camouflaged.
Like I don't have a poem prepared, but I feel like
I'll give you two game 2 or in
game
the break,
2?
maybe between.
Yeah, in the break.
No. Game 4. When we get on Kings Canyon, you can have a go.
All right, okay. Kings Canyon is where it's going to come out. But we do have a couple of rats. So even though there's 13 squads, there are not that many players indeed. A few people just trying to survive. And it's a big question of when you're going to be pushing into this circle. We've already seen a couple of teams who rotated late in trying to utilize Wraith's ultimate, not really working out. And I think that is sometimes the difficulty with rotating in late, is that you kind of go all in on the Wraith portal, and if it doesn't work, you really just get left for dead. Like, there is no chance of escaping it if a team is on the end of your portal.
Well, it looks like Lava City boys are going to heal up here and then take that portal. It's actually not going to have time, and it looks like they're going to try and play this wall, which will give them a little bit of time, or buy them a little bit of time, and they're kind of hoping, I believe, that there are going to be some teams who get involved in fights, as they move into that circle to get some extra placement points. Another 2 teams make that 3 teams that's going to drop here. I believe Purge were one of those teams as well. There's a couple of rats being taken out, but Third Impact set up beautifully here inside this building. The question is here, can they pick up these KP? Do they have the angles to work with? And they are going to have to move. As I say, it's going to finish in that open ground. Lava City boys now involved in a fight, and they do manage to get a knock, but unfortunately, they will be taken down as the shots start to ring out across here in Fragment West.
Lava City boys go down. Cooler Esports are also very weak, and now Third Impact, they want a little bit of a sniff of this. They come out of hiding, and they get the kill points for it, down to just 3 squads. Cooler, they fall, but Third Impact, prime position. Now they just need to work out who's left. Outsiders, full gold armor to work with. Definitely in a good position here, but they don't really have the height advantage.
Have managed to move into a position, though, with a beautiful Wraith portal, so they have a couple of angles to potentially work with here. Bodyguards are our other team involved in this lobby as well. A Messenger with that fully kitted out Evo shield as well, all the way up to a full red, and legit Lolly's managed to find himself another one on a death box here. So in the last moments, that big team fight win from them is going to give them the armor to potentially win out this game. But the question is now, who's going to shoot first? Who's going to blink first in this battle? Who's going to be that team who gets pushed, and who's going to be the third party who could potentially win this game? It's all about discipline in these situations here for these teams. If you have the better position, you have to wait for those other 2 teams to fight before you look to pounce.
15 seconds, and sometimes you just have to wait for that circle to kind of give you a kick up the backside before you push in, and try and position yourself as close as possible so you don't take any unnecessary damage. And that's exactly what Outsiders have done here. They've been able to work their way around, but they do need to be careful as shots are coming from the north there, and it is going to be bodyguards up just with a little bit of wall coverage, but they're going to have to push out of this cover now as this circle comes in, and they have to be careful from the east, Mark.
Yeah, and Outsiders here holding down this position. A big thermite as well is going to force these 2 teams to fight. You can see trying to use those mechanics here, legit Lolly, to get out of that situation, avoid some shots, but here comes the push again. Yasiltar with the devotion is going to take down legit Lolly, and Mistral has managed to get out of that situation and stay alive as well. There's one player in a corner, he gets taken out as well, and Outsiders with a clean wipe here of this team. One more Pathfinder left inside the building, he gets taken down, and look, there's a Wraith as well, and it should surely in this situation be Outsiders to finish this off, but they can't land those final shots until now. Outsiders will finish as your champions here in game number 1. A fantastic push from them, and again, waiting to be the best party, which is, of course, the third one.
Third party always the best party and just coming in at the right time and keeping a little bit of utility for the late game as well, which will sometimes be quite difficult to do as a team. You're very tempted to throw those grenades early to maybe suss out a little bit of information, but if you can use those grenades in late game, God, they're so powerful. They can force teams into fights like you just saw there. They can pick up kills like we saw there as well. They kind of backed both other teams into one corner, and then they were able to just kind of walk in and just sweep everything up elsewhere. But it did mean that they had to hit some pretty important shots. When there was a 120 Mastiff shot there was hit. Without that, things could have gone pretty south.
Well, there's a spinning Pathfinder, one of the highlights certainly from our game number 1, but it was a surprise to me to see Na'Vi, as I say, fall again as one of our first teams eliminated. Some nice shots there from Sadyama as we moved towards this final circle, but it was a central one, like we said, just finishing in Fragment West here in the outside courtyard of this building, where Third Impact were the team who were kind of controlling things for the majority of this game, Dan.
Very much controlling things. I think that's really important, is to know when you are in control and when you are in an advantageous position and when you can take advantage of that position, which is exactly what happened with Outsiders at the end here. And just being able to just waddle on in with a devotion is always going to be quite fun. When they're that close, you can just spray down and you get some very comfortable kills, to be honest. I don't think they were ever going to escape that. When you've got Mastiff, you've got just so much damage available from both teams and both players, really.
And that end circle, haha, devotion go burr, I think is the best thing to say about that. Pretty much you just hold down left mouse button and you win the game. As simple as that. But as I say, it was a beautiful push from them in the end. But that is going to do it for our game number 1. But don't go anywhere. We've got 5 games remaining in our last chance qualifier today. Game number 2 is just around the corner. Welcome back, Apex fans, once again to the GLL Masters Summer with Onset and with Gaskin. I think you're that side. Are you this side? No, you're that side.
Other one.
Mate.
There we go.
Damn it. I should have practiced that beforehand. Welcome back, everybody. After game number 1, Outsiders were our champion team. Phenomenal performance from them. Third Impact obviously taking second place, but now we move into game 2. And the Na'Vi question is still very much up in the air for me, Dan, as we take a look at these leaderboards.
Yeah, Na'Vi getting eliminated early is not the way they wanted to start this last chance qualifier. But we can take a look at the leaderboard and see how everything resides. Outsiders are, of course, top after their positioning in that game, but also a decent amount of kill points. 9 kills they were able to pick up. Third Impact in second, who were in quite an advantageous position for quite some time. But unfortunately, they were just kind of forced out of their little cubby hole maybe a little bit earlier than they would have liked. And they were on the receiving end of some very powerful weaponry on the side of Outsiders. Teams that I wasn't expecting to be down at the bottom, of course, Na'Vi there. Flex Gang, we know, didn't compete in the first game, and I don't think they're actually going to be competing at all today, which is a shame, or at least they're not going to be in match 2 anyway. I don't know if they're just going to turn up in match 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Who knows? We'll keep you up to date. Fenerbahce Esports, they dropped a little bit sooner than I would have thought as well, but it's only the first game, all right? Like, we still have plenty of time for some of these teams at the bottom to get into that top 10, because that's what everyone is playing for today. Getting into that top 10 means you get into the grand finals, which are going to be this weekend.
And Outsiders and Third Impact, in my opinion, probably the 2 strongest teams that we have in this lobby, performing exactly like that. 21 points on the board and 16 points on the board for those 2 teams respectively. Exactly the start that you want in one of those, in the first game of the day, if you are one of those more notable teams in this lobby trying to make it through to our grand finals, like you mentioned. Now, you got to look at that bottom half already. You're looking at Team Purge, Exorcism, YDN, Finalized, Fenerbahce. They're the ones who have now got to make up that ground already. And although you might be thinking, it's only game number 1, a lot can change. You look at the difference between first place and 11th place already, and 21 points and 3 points. And that's a big gap to have to potentially make up. I know they're only aiming for that top 10, but that gap can really extend if you have a couple of games here where you don't get those points on the board.
Yeah, and in the first 4 weeks when we had the double points in the alpha lobbies, sometimes those gaps looked bigger than they actually were. But actually, without double points now in this lobby, this is still quite a significant gap, and it is going to be somewhat difficult to try and close that down. But it's all about 10th. I mean, you're not really necessarily looking at first place if you're in this bottom 10 right now. You're not thinking about winning this lobby. Instead, you're just trying to focus on getting into the top 10 first, and then maybe thinking about how you're going to claw back the points on those lobby leaders. But I am expecting a little bit more out of Na'Vi in this game. I think that they will be particularly disappointed with how they played, but sometimes it just goes against you, right? Sometimes you just get caught between several teams. Sometimes your rotation isn't great and whatnot. There are always going to be some factors that might be out of their control. Of course, we can only speculate as we didn't see everything that went down. We only joined the fight a little bit late. But I certainly feel like we're going to see a little bit more aggression from them in this game. I think they'll try and take the fight to some other teams here to try and get some kill points on the board.
And one thing that I love about the fact that we do have the 2 maps involved in the competitions at the moment for competitive Apex is that previously, say we were just playing on World's Edge, right, and you got 6 games to find your rotation, to feel comfortable, to find your way into a series. The difficulty here is you've only got 3 games on World's Edge, and if things don't go right here in this second game, and World's Edge is, as a team, you feel this is probably the stronger map for you and you play better here, then you're in real trouble, because then you move straight over to Kings Canyon and you've got to completely reinvent yourself on that map and, potentially change the way you want to drop, how you're going to rotate. You have that, the added unknowns of that first game where everyone's going to be dropping. So I really do feel like World's Edge is big for a lot of these teams. And if you find yourself outside of that top 10 after World's Edge is done and dusted here, it really could be a struggle for you here. So I almost feel like these 2 games here are some of the most important in our series today.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's certainly more, what's the word? There's just a lot more cohesion, and there's a lot more, I think the teams, they know what to expect when it comes to World's Edge. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, they know how it plays out. They know how people are going to try and approach things. Kings Canyon, yes, okay, people are getting a little bit more used to, but still some teams throwing spanners in the works and kind of changing things up and pushing in different ways. And it's a very tight map, Kings Canyon, in comparison to World's Edge as well. So you get a couple more early fights, which can add to that RNG aspect. Whereas when people know what to expect on World's Edge, when it doesn't go their way and the way that they're used to it going, then suddenly that can throw you off completely, whether that be a rotation or whether that be a drop. But there is always going to be something that could throw your mindset slightly off. And once the mindset's gone and the team starts arguing, then that's always going to be a downside. I'd like to think that these teams don't argue, and that's why I miss kind of like the in-game communication that we sometimes get at LAN tournaments, just being able to see.
Dan, we play Apex and argue, so teams who
if we do, then you'd imagine
top
it.
level are definitely going to be arguing. And as I say, those things you try and keep up, as I say, is one of those things that you try and keep down and you try and focus on your game. But if you have a couple of games, that's what I mean. Those problems start to rise to the top a little bit, and you start to have those little passive aggressive comments, those little things that's like, oh, we shouldn't have pushed here when there's only one person who pushed there, Dan. So those sort of things happen, and that's what I mean about these 2 games here, these 2 games on World's Edge being so vital, because if things don't go your way on a map that you prefer, then those things are going to come to the fore, and you put even more pressure on yourself when you move into Kings Canyon.
I think we will have to keep an eye on where this first circle goes as well, because that can really shape up the game and how people play. That was a very central circle, which I personally quite like, because it means that it's almost even playing field for everyone. Okay, there's going to be a couple of teams that might drop a little bit central and they have a tiny bit of an advantage, but when it's a very kind of shifted circle towards the north or the south side of the map, you will see some of those teams on the other side struggle, and they don't get the natural rotation that they would have liked, and it means that they sometimes might feel hard done by, whereas that seems like a central circle is the most fair way to approach a game of Apex Legends, if a fair way exists, which I'm not sure it necessarily does, and I'm sure that teams and players would argue that the ring didn't quite go their way. But I'd be excited if we got like a heavy shift circle in this second game to see how some of those teams on the other side actually managed to deal with that.
Well, good news, the lobby has been remade, and we're about to get into our game number 2. And just to remind you, if you're only just joining us as well, it was Outsiders who took our game number 1 there, with some big points on the board for them. And it was Third Impact, who were the team who came in second. So our leaderboard's kind of looking like maybe we would expect with some of those teams who are up at the top there. But as I say, we'll be keeping our eyes on that bottom 10 as well as this tournament progresses. And I'm sure that everyone who's fans of some of those teams in the bottom 10 will be helping us out along the way and tweeting in and saying in the chat exactly where they are, how many points they need, what positions they're in, and supporting their boys. But Dan, let's talk about the mentality of those teams in that bottom 10 at the moment as we try and get into this next game, because we've all been there, right? You find yourself on the back foot. You find yourself looking down the barrel of the gun, so to speak, not just in game but out of game as well, and not making it through to that grand finals. How big is the influence of an IGL in these situations for those teams to drag them out of that funk and in that situation?
I mean, an IGL is so important. Like, if you don't have a designated IGL, someone who is going to be there to pick you up and also to kind of not kick you down, but also tell you when things aren't going right, then you are really going to struggle. Like, you need that commanding voice in a game like Apex Legends. When there's so many little minor decisions that can make or break, you need to have someone with a big voice and someone who's confident. And you need to have a team who trusts that IGL as well. Because if you've got a team that goes, oh, well, Barry might have said this, but I'm not really sure if Barry's correct, then you're going to get the umming and ahhing, and people are going to go in different directions, and then you're just going to get a big old kerfuffle when no one's happy. commanding voice. People agree with it. People just follow him to the death, whether it's a good call or a bad call, and then you're going to be a good situation. But you've also got to have the IGL to say, look, guys, let's step it up now. We were pretty crap in that first game, but now we do better. Like, you need to have someone who just says it how it is. If you start tiptoeing around like, oh, yeah, well, John, you were okay in that situation. No, tell them they were bad. Tell them they need to be better. Step it up. And then I think you can have a good match too.
Looking forward to meeting your teammates, John and Barry. Two weird names, but it is what it is.
You leave John and Barry alone.
No, whatever, man. They're good players. I know. Really, really, really good. Really good players. Let's have a look at that circle then. As outsiders are winners from game number 1, give us that opportunity to do so. And it looks like Refinery is going to be involved, Epicenter as well. So that high ground that you can see kind of shaded between the two of those POIs is going to be absolutely vital for these teams. Get up on that height, try and hold that down, and see when their next circle is going to be moving. But for teams that are, like you mentioned, Dan, dropping on the south side of World's Edge here, this is going to be a tough rotation for them to make.
Yeah, teams that are down by Thermal, down by Dome, they are going to struggle to get through the map. They either have to go like dead central and try and get past some people who potentially could be gatekeeping it with several chokes, or you try and go kind of around the edge of the map. But again, if you're not the only team doing so, you're going to run into someone else who's trying to do exactly the same thing, and then you might struggle because they have got there first. So it again comes down to that little bit of race against time, being able to loot up very quickly, get enough weaponry where you are happy enough to take a fight, and then you start moving and start progressing towards that next circle. Because if you spend too long looting, then you are going to find yourself being one of the last into the circle, and that's definitely not what you want. Of course, there are some compositions which are better, but others might find themselves struggle as, well, this is an interesting situation, isn't it?
Yep, we're outside of Trials here on the very northwest of the map, and it looks like there's 2 teams around there. So Fig, I believe that was, we're just trying to play that one a little bit sneaky and maybe wait for that team to walk out of the door and try and catch him off guard with a 3-man. But it looks like they've given up on that decision, as the team inside will be Cooler Esports, who have got a couple of purples to work with as well, and looking across the guns as well for the team, the 301 and the Mastiff. A pretty good combo here on the Wraith for Jules. He's got that sort of short to medium range alongside the Mastiff for that up close and personal fighting. And they're going to have to make their rotation through Skyhook, potentially through that tunnel as well towards Refinery. So a pretty clear path for Caller Esports to have to make here, who I believe were in our top 3 after game number 1.
They are one of these teams that we do have to keep an eye on with just how well they had performed in previous 4 weeks of action. As outsiders, of course, another team that have been doing incredible throughout the 4 weeks, but also doing very well in this last chance qualifier. And they've done pretty well in terms of their loot early on. Being able to get gold armor is always one of the most, I'd say it makes me feel most comfortable, most at home. If I'm able to get a gold armor, I'm like, all right, I'm sorted now. I'm not too worried about my weapons. I would rather have good armor and an okay weapon rather than great weapons and okay armor. But that's me personally. Some people and some teams are, of course, going to have different preferences as well. But this is the kind of area that you were talking about, Mark. Like, all this different high ground that's available on this side of the map is where people are going to be kind of battling it out at the moment, just to try and gain as much info as possible and try and get into those advantageous positions for late game.
We are going to see Third Impact and the winners of our game number 1 outsiders moving in quite deep towards Refinery here. So it looks like their decision has been made that it's going to be pulling more towards Refinery than it is towards Epicenter. Na'Vi now on their way in, up on this high ground that I was talking about, kind of between the two, which is a great place to hold if you're looking for some KP, as those teams do rotate from the low ground through Refinery and obviously around Survey Camp as well. The only issue is you have to make sure you're prioritizing those teams that you are going to be trying to fight, because you can end up being a little bit of the meat in the sandwich, like I mentioned previously. There's a team rotating to their south as well, to Refinery, which they haven't managed to spot out here, as they do look to the west of the map. And no surprise to see that, to be honest with you, considering the fact that the majority of those teams will be moving from the south side to the north.
Yeah, these teams at this point know pretty much all the drop locations of these teams, so they will be very aware of where they could potentially be pushed from. And it's important to keep a keen eye, and also just someone looking where you wouldn't expect as well, because you never know where a team might turn out, as Weigers now are under a little bit of fire here, and Robe's gone down. And, well, Crip is going to try and get out of dodge here. Does have a med kit, so at least he can survive, but that is not a good start for those boys. Finalized have been able to push in, and they will be the ones who actually get the first kill here. And I wonder whether they can smell blood. Are they going to go for this one?
Well, it looks like the Gibraltar's going to be moving in first, and no surprise to see that, with that arm shield will be popping up to give him that extra HP to work with, almost a walking turret at this point. Gibraltar in Apex Legends, and you can see Bryn trying to make his move up as well, and here comes Blast as well to try and chase down these final two players to try and use that advantage they have in the numbers onto Weigers here. Crip's going to get that armor swap, but it's going to be a blue for the sake of a white. Now he's going to have to use the zip line to try and get away as well. You can see the aggression here from Finalize. The difficulty for them is the fact that they are actually going to lose a player, as there is a Pathfinder who's managed to get up top themselves. So now I think we find ourselves in a 2v2 position between the two teams, as Finalize now look like they are going to try and drop, but it is actually going to be an easy res for them, as you're going to see Paradise here getting back into a position to get that banner, and potentially look for a respawn here onto his teammate. The only problem is there's so many teams around at the moment, it's going to be difficult for him to get out of dodge as he hits the queue.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit concerned that he actually went that way, but I can understand, of course, there were going to be other teams the other way as well. I just feel like he double backed on himself. I wonder whether he was even thinking about the next banner. It was a little bit weird, but he has been able to just about survive, and at least he has the one banner and potentially can get a res. But a lot of attention will be brought if he does go for it. He's still having a little think about this banner of the Pathfinder, though. He wants to get Crip back up, and I'm not surprised. Crip's been a very highly performing player, but at the moment, Finalized are very aware of where this banner is, and I think they are going to keep keen eyes on it.
The Finalized then moving their way towards where they might think that last player alive is, but they're keeping their eyes on that banner, and one team's keeping an eye on Execute at the moment. As you can see, Koze is going to have to find a little cozy corner here to try and get some cells off to get his shields back up, as Execute now make their rotation through Epicenter. The problem for them is Exorcism are on top of the central structure, the kind of spider structure in the middle of Epicenter here. And they've got some long-range weaponry to work with as well, with that charge rifle, which is so good for damaging and the inventory of those teams and making them use up those shield cells, making them use up that Watson ult as well to try and get those shields back. And you just do so much damage to the economy of teams. And the good thing about the charge rifle as well, like we talk about as quite a lot in Apex Legends, is attachment-wise, you don't really need anything with that hit scan mechanic that it does have. So you can kind of just stick a scope on that and you're good to go.
Yeah, the charge rifle's in a lot better of a spot than it once was. I mean, I'm sure that most players don't miss that charge rifle meta and how scary it was when someone had one behind you, but a little bit of an engagement here for Over the Top. They've already lost Andre Strong, and Bloodrain has no shields to work with as well, so Streamy needs to try and give him a little bit of support here and help him out, as Pinky Finky is going to get the finish onto Andre Strong. So now Fenerbahce picking up some kill points, and maybe we'll try and look to get a complete wipe here. Have they been able to suss out whereabouts they push to? Of course, a lot of audio cues. And they do see the Wraith portal there as well. And you can just sometimes put a little bit of a Watson fence around it, just to make sure they can't come back.
Over the top here, having to shield up and try and live to fight another day there, as Fenerbahce Esports weren't able to get the clean wipe onto that team. And the Wraith portal was enough to get them out of dodge here. But you can see they're outside of the next circle as well. So they're going to have to make a little bit of a trip across some open ground to that ring number 3. 1:30 until we do see ring number 2 start to close. As Finalized now have eyes on a team who are pushing just to the north of Overlook here. Maybe some shots given off from them that's going to give their location away, as the team might move in here to try and take that fight and gatekeep them out of that next circle. Vibin are the team who are actually up on the drill tower here, so they're overlooking them, and this is bad news here for Finalized. Such a height disparity between the two teams means there's going to essentially just be 3 shots here for Vibin on this team, and you can see Joke making them count, hitting those shots with the G7 Scout. The 301 was hitting as well for Bryn. And now some shots going to be actually exchanged with the G7 of his own from Nook here on the Gibraltar. And it's a case here for Finalized of having to do some damage and maybe try and push this solo player up on the drill tower to get that knock and get themselves out of this position.
How are your nades? No, they didn't look like they landed, but I respect the effort. And you said there was quite a big height disparity, but often it can come down to actually the weapons that are available. And unfortunately, those with height, having those scouts available to them means it can be quite difficult to get out when you are the team that doesn't have the height advantage. And Finalize, well, they need to have a little bit of a think here. They need to have a plan of action. Are they all going to push together? Are they going to try and take this one player out? Well, every time they peek, they are going to be wasting more and more resources. Medkits are going to go down, and they need to be trying to like save those shields, try and save those meds, because otherwise, if they do manage to escape this situation, they're going to be escaping with very little. Although they may hope that they can maybe win this fight, win this engagement, and take the meds off of the players who are at the moment being a real nuisance to them.
Well, this is going to be really tough for them. You can see Vibin has multiple angles on them, all from height. The Joke is actually going to play this one pretty smart, as the Wraith Portal was put under his building. So I think that Finalized actually realized that that was a solo player, a little bit split from his teammate, trying to get that advantageous angle, and they decided to portal into him and try and play aggressive and take that fight and turn it into a 3v2 situation where they could then move a little bit more freely across the map. They've also, most importantly, managed to work themselves into that next circle. So now they've got time to play with, as Vibin now with the charge rifle in hands, as Biting is hitting some nice shots with that to back them down. The question is here, how long is this battle going to go in? Because the longer it goes on, it means that the more opportunity there will be for a third party to move in, as Bryn does manage to hit some nice massive shots. He gets the finish onto Knights as well. So now it is, I believe, a 2v2 situation, but he can't get the armor swap off in time, and now it all falls onto the shoulders of Bryn here, as Vibin are trying to move in. Biting, he's going to be able to get some ammo and potentially an armor swap off one of these bodies as well. And I think that was the final player actually eliminated just off screen. So Finalized after that long extended battle will be the team to take the L, and they will be the second team out of this lobby.
Yeah, but how much ammo, how much meds, how much did they actually lose here, Vibin? And look at that. You were saying how long is the fight going to be? Well, it was long enough where people were able to come over and have a little bit of a sniff as the big PP aura. No, I can't believe I actually said it. I didn't want to say that during this broadcast, but there we go. I just read it, and now I just realized what I said. They've lost one, and they are stuck between a rock and a hard place at the moment, but they have plenty of Watson fences around them. Should be able to get this res. Just need to make sure they cover each other.
It's Big Papora. It's just the capitalization is all.
I definitely heard you say Big PP aura at one point, so I've just gone off you, basically. So this is your fault, this entire thing.
It's 100% that, but, yeah, you know, Big Papora. Anyway, they're currently set up in the silo building, and they've got the bottom floor, and as you say, set up pretty comfortably here. They've got a couple of zip lines set up to the top as well for that rotation. There's a Naruto running Wraith as well through, I believe that is the south side of Epicenter. Towards it, you can see those glaciers just in front of him. Fenerbahce Esports still involved in this game as well, and Pinky Finky, unfortunately, is going to be taken down to no shield, so he's going to have to back up and pop a Phoenix kit to get up to full health. Gibraltar defensive bombardment is going to come in as well, forcing them back, but they are inside that next circle. They do have some of this high ground here, so as we know, there's a couple of teams to the south of Fenerbahce Esports here, which could potentially be KP for them should they choose the gatekeep. And Na'Vi still set up here. And one thing we should talk about is those teams who did have that circle knowledge, that experience under their belt that is going to be pulling towards Refinery here, are going to be set up. And those two teams are Third Impact and Outsiders, the winners and the second place team from our game number one.
Well, Vibin were able to escape, and they have been able to get some resources, and they've been able to pick up another kill point. Weigers will fall. And now it means they can just check these death boxes and refill on any meds that they may have used in that very, very long engagement. But you're completely right. Those teams that have found themselves into this high ground situation, they are in a beneficial spot. But I feel like they need to make sure they are just kind of peppering shots towards other people to try and warn them away. They don't want to allow people to get too close to them so they can be pincered and be third party too easily. Instead, just be like, okay, we are prepared to take that fight. Just kind of flex your muscles a little bit and say, we're not scared of you, and we want to try and make you fear us. We want to make you rotate a little bit differently rather than trying to attack us and take the position away from us. As Execute now are really in a tough spot. You can see nades are coming in. They're very weak. They're trying to shield up, as I think another team knows exactly where they are right now.
And this is another zone here over at Refinery where there's a lot of ground to be played inside this train station, this big building that you do see these teams currently set up in at the moment. You have multiple levels. Here's another team inside, dead inside. Then you have the roofs, you have the two areas above, you have the corridors either side. So a little bit like our first circle here. You're going to see a lot of teams stacked up on top of each other. And you can see that big pull as well into this train station. So this is going to be prime ground for a lot of teams to move into. You can also see a lot of teams actually not rotated in yet. And the later you leave that rotation in, a little bit like Fragment, that first circle that we saw from game number one, the more difficult it is for you to make that movement in here. So teams who are already inside Refinery here are going to be feeling pretty good about life.
This is the difficult spot, right? There's still 17 squads left, and you don't want to give up your position. You don't want to be the team that pushes in first, because then a kind of explosion and all hell will break loose if you do, as everyone will go for the KP, as LCB lose their first, lose their second, but we are seeing more kills being picked up now, as those teams who are outside of this circle are having to get a little bit more aggressive, trying to pick up some of that KP, but Exorcism get their last man up, and they were able to win that engagement with LCB. But they have quite a long way to go, and they have a lot of ground to cover. Lava City boys fall, which is a shame, because I thought they looked quite strong in match number 1. But they'll have to come back in match number 3 and show us something a little bit different. Always painful when you've worked this much and you kind of got this far in the game, but there are still so many squads that if you are punished, then you get nothing for all that hard work. They just weren't able to get into one of these advantageous positions and get closer towards this last circle, as Exorcism are now going to spot out the team above them. They do land a couple of free shots, but that doesn't mean they're going to give their position away.
Exorcism are going to have one of the toughest rotations to make here, as they make their way uphill, and then they have to make their way downhill with everybody looking over them from Refinery. Fenerbahce Esports still involved, but only for a few seconds, as they get absolutely shredded by the teams who are set up on that high ground. Taboo is the last man alive. His 2 teammates have been taken down, and you can go and join them in the dirt. That was a fantastic wipe coming in there from those teams, and it was multiple teams who were actually involved in that shooting. Na'Vi now trying to shoot some fish in a barrel as they move down from that high ground, and you can see how difficult the rotation is now for these teams from Epicenter. Everybody looking out towards the south of the map, trying to pick up KP, as we're going to see Knights clutch up at the last moment, but doesn't have the HP to survive the ring moving in. So that will be another team falling here. 12 squads now remaining, as 6 or 7 squads have dropped in the last few moments.
Well, Vyman did well to pick up some more KP. They were kill leader before Knights fell there. Third impact, again, prime position. They had this, though, in the first game, and then they kind of sacrificed it a little bit and weren't able to win. But seeing them at the top of the lobby yet again does not surprise me. One of our better teams left in, as you can now see, down to 12 squads. Vibin and YDN were the 2 teams most recently eliminated, as you can see a little bit of hectic sensitivity from G here, just having a little scout around, seeing if anyone is going to be shooting them from that advantageous point where there's a little bit of high ground. We can see where that next circle is going to be, and it is going to be right dead center of this building. And that means there are going to be plenty of spots and also several different levels, which always make it a somewhat entertaining ending, should I say. Because it means you can drop from above, or you can stay a little bit below and just hope that people have those fights above you, and then you can kind of pick up those kills and get scrappy down below afterwards. All those different decisions you're going to have to make, and sometimes the decisions are made for you because of just where you've been forced.
And sometimes a train will come and ruin your game, a little bit like we saw in the Americas region most recently. Yeah, a train got involved here, is all I'm going to say about that one. And shout out to Ghost of the Army, because he had absolutely no chill to the team on Twitter as well, who unfortunately came under the wrath of the train. So I'm sure that players are going to be keeping their ears peeled, if that is even a saying, for that train potentially coming along. In fact, we have a quick look at the map overhead very, very quickly, if the observers can bring it up. There's no train in sight. We're fine. We're fine. Everyone seems to have found themselves a position. There's no train that I can see for now, so it should just be a case of the teams feeling a little bit comfortable. Train's out of there. Train's a long way away. Although it could make its way round. I don't want to call it again, but it could happen.
I mean, there's always a what if, right? But I think for the most part, these players will just be focusing on trying to stay alive, because with 12 squads left, with this circle getting smaller and smaller, there is going to be very little real estate to work with, and there's going to have to be some big shots landed, as there is going to be a battle here on the top. Exorcism have a really good spot, but they might have to win this fight if they want to keep hold of it.
Will execute here inside as well, and you can see having to queue out of this position. It looks like they're a little bit stuck in this area, having to use that Watson ult to offer some sort of protection, as Gatorix is trying to use his knockdown shield as well, just to eat up a few bullets in a few seconds before Big Chunk Funk might come under pressure himself. And let's see if the funky one can bust out the moves in this situation to get out of this sticky spot. But dead inside, stuck, looking down on it at the moment, and that is going to be Purge, I believe, who are going to be taken down, as We now go down to 11 squads in this game, and you can just look at the kill feed here. Different players from different teams being dropped in different situations. Exorcism, though, up on this high ground have made this move, and big, massive shots are going to be huge for them to potentially hold down this position. Dead inside, make the push inside as well, as now you're going to see the Caustic desperately trying to get away, as Stanny is going to try and queue out of position here to stay alive. He becomes the kill leader with that kill as well, and Outsiders, the winner of our first game, are still involved in our top 9 here, although Yasilta has just been dropped.
Yeah, they're involved, but they are struggling. But Mistral does have gold armor, so he does have the ability to heal up here, but he's just very aware that there are teams above him. That caustic gas caused so much damage right at the bottom, and now it's just about trying to just survive here if you're one of these bottom teams. There are a couple of teams who are above you, and they are going to be in prime position really to win this game. Exorcism are one of those teams I called out earlier, but this battle is still going on up here, Mark. No one has been able to win this fight, even with some of these big, massive shots being landed, and you've got to be careful here that you don't give away any sort of easy knock, because otherwise the team is going to get aggressive and take this position off you.
Legit Lolly dropping down to pick up some meds there, I believe, and Third Impact are now making their move as well. And it's Legit Lolly who came out of nowhere back up that wall to land some big shots with a devotion. He's going to grapple back up as well, but doesn't have the ability to finish off that team up top. So that will be them taken down, as Big PP Aura are going to be involved as well. But again, shots just catching him as he tried to back down around that corner. And Chaos and Zanma now trying to hold on in this situation. Outsiders, although they've lost their Pathfinder Yasilta, still in this game inside the top 4. Lazarus, another team I can see picking up kill points here in the feed. Mistral with the gold armor. Kader with the red as well, fully decked out Evo shield here. The question is, can he find the meds to get back up to a full complement of HP, as Lazarus now are going to be contested for this high ground.
How on earth is these fights still happening up here? No one's been able to come out on top. There's just so many teams trying to take this spot. Decent shots yet again. That's going to be one more knock, and Lazarus still have a pretty healthy squad here. Might even be able to get the revive. They have to be careful. Look where the next circle is going to be going in 1 minute. You're going to have to jump off that building. So maybe actually Outsiders could be in prime position, but these are some big shots being hit by Jules. And he is going to continue pushing here. Gets the second. And now we're down to just 2. And I'm fairly certain it's Outsiders. Yes, it is, but they smell blood. They want to get in on this one, Mark.
Pathfinder will be taken down here. 2 squads remaining. Kader and Mistral looking to make it back-to-back here in our first 2 games on World's Edge. They get the finish on 1. And you can see that Yuki, he's going to be the player to be taken down. Mistral knows this is a 2v1 situation, I do believe. And it's going to be Jules, the last man alive here, trying to get those heals off. The issue for him is he's in a very, very tough spot here. Not only does he have to rotate, and it looks like he's going to have to rotate through this team, who are up on top at the moment, Outsiders. It's a 1v2 situation. He has a Mastiff and a Flatline to work with. He has to get big damage off and try and separate these 2 players before he engages with the second.
Yeah, he's thinking about where else he can go and seeing if he can rotate differently, and it does look like
I think he might die to the zone here.
But he is just going to die, and Outsiders take game 2. That is back-to-back victories for them, and it was gifted to them in the end. But I respect the effort just to try and do something a little bit different, seeing if he can rotate differently. But unfortunately, the zone just doing too much damage there and not able to escape with his life.
Yeah, a little bit of an unfortunate situation. It's so tough in a straight 2v1 to win that fight against a team like Outsiders, who, you know, just won our game number 1 to show how good they are. But just trying to make that rotation, you've got to realize you can't make it, right? Maybe he just didn't want to give them the KP. That might have been the thing that he was thinking in that situation. That extra point towards those top placings could affect you, and it could come back to hurt you if you're one of those teams looking in on the outside of that top 10 when all is said and done after today. But this was the fight that seemed to go on forever around the Overlook area, as we have a look at a rat cam there just for a second. Shout out to the observers, of course, for bringing us the high quality action in this game. But Exorcism here having a fight as well. But this was the one fight that stood out for me. I believe it was Fenerbahce Esports, who basically got wiped in about 1.2 seconds. As about 3 or 4 teams shot them as they made that way up towards Epicenter.
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to talk about it much because there was a fight that followed very shortly afterwards, but the Watson ult just didn't come down quick enough when the bombardment from Gibby came out, and they just found themselves just getting absolutely railed by the bombs coming from above. So I don't know if that was a mistake, just not putting it down or not recognizing that they were under a bombardment. I don't know. I feel like something didn't feel right with that engagement, or maybe it was just because they were under so much pressure from several teams, as you said, they just didn't have time to react. But in the end, it was Outsiders. Jules tried to go for something a little bit different, but yeah, it was never going to work out. Instead, he just fell to his death. I think at that point, he realized he wasn't going to escape. Maybe he thought he could go out to the right instead of going out those big doors, but once he realized his health total was being chunked down, he just kind of gave up.
Yeah, I think he basically, just from looking at the replay there, decided that KP was not going to be given to Outsiders in that situation. So it was a heck of a play from Outsiders to get in that position again. We always see them, that the timing of that last push, we always talk about it, right? When you see those teams fighting, are you aware of the other teams around you? Do you have enough time to engage and then disengage should the fight not go your way? And they've done that twice now in our final circle. So you have to say that their end game has been absolutely superb so far. The question is now, as we head into our break before game number 3, can they go back to back to back? We'll have to find out in just a few moments. And welcome back once again, Apex fans, and it's time for game number 3 now, our final game on World's Edge. And Dan, Outsiders have to be the standout performer so far because back-to-back, 2 wins on the board, you can't ask for better than that.
They're such a scary team, people are just denying them kill points at this point. They say, we can't give them any more, they're leading by too much. But this is how the scoreboard looked after match 2. And Outsiders, again, 10 kill points, 12 placement points. They are just farming this lobby right now. Cooler Esports with a decent performance yet again in second. A couple of notable shout-outs for Vibin for getting to top 5. Exorcism performed well. However, struggling on the bottom end are teams like Wigers and Lava City Boys. I felt bad for Lava City Boys in that game because we had a lot of teams in a fairly small circle and they were one of the first to fall and they just fell with completely nothing, had no kill points to work with either. Also, Navi still struggling in 16th at the moment.
And we'll take a look at the overall leaderboards then. This is what matters. Top 10, of course, we'll be going through to our grand finals this weekend. And for teams like FigVam, Finalize, and Team Purge, well, they've got to make up that ground as we see a little bit of a disparity already happening, and no surprise with Outsiders winning those first 2 games. But with Outsiders picking up so many KP and placement points, that's good for those teams that are in 11th for 20th at the moment, Dan, because it means that gap between them and that top 10 isn't going to be extending. It's kind of be a little bit top heavy looking, which means that one big game and they could be in that top 10 and qualify.
They could, and I expect this top 10 to change up somewhat. Because when you look at Lava City Boys, for example, in 9th, after their performance, they got no points. If that were to happen again, suddenly we're going to see teams like FigVam and Finalize to have the potential to leapfrog them. I know that Purge and Wigers have the ability to break into this top 10. Fenerbahce Esports as well definitely have the ability to do so. They just need to have that one game where they stand out and they get a decent amount of points. Because otherwise, they're going to keep finding themselves further and further behind. And that's going to make things increasingly difficult as we move in to potentially Kings Canyon.
And one team that needs to step it up is Na'Vi, as I say, right down at the bottom of the table. As it stands, Outsiders looking for the trifecta in this game. The back-to-back-to-back wins would almost solidify themselves a place in our grand finals if they haven't already done that with those big KP and placement points they've picked up so far. As we see a lovely little emote from the Pathfinder on his way down to the no-name just outside of Fragment, and they will be hitting that beacon once again, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. 2 wins on the bounce. Everything's been working for them. They really have been looking like the best team in the lobby.
I mean, I feel like we should just start with Outsiders every time because they give us the information of where the circle is going to be. It's going to be down by Geyser, very east on the side of the map, just touching Fragment east as well, slightly Overlook being there. So that team who does drop into Overlook are going to be in a decent spot, and of course, well, they've landed in the perfect position to have Outsiders. They are going to be able to loot up here. They've dropped quite separately. You can see one right in the tunnel next to Geyser, one up towards Epicenter, and then one down here in this no-name near Fragment East. So they are trying to spread themselves to get a decent amount of loot, and once they have looted up, they're going to be in a position, Mark, where they can take some pretty good territory here in the early stages.
Yeah, always a little bit of risk to have a solo Pathfinder drop in on that beacon. We saw it in the Americas region a couple of weeks ago where TSM, Albalelli dropped, and Liquid realized that after a couple of games and decided, hey, it's a free KP for us. If we all 3 drop and punch him out, then that is not only KP for us, but taking, one of the major competitors for that first place spot out of a game. So they have to be a little bit of aware of that, but I think a lot of teams are also aware of how good Outsiders are in that lobby, as they've shown in this first 2 games. But talking about the circle, it's one of those where it could potentially move towards Geyser, it could potentially move back to no name where they are at the moment. So again, we're looking at experienced players to make those calls on where it's going to be. And for Outsiders, it looked like they were pinging the choke between Geyser and the No Name, so they kind of hedging their bets a little bit on teams who might be rotating in and making their rotation, as they're not too comfortable, a little bit later on where that ring is going to pull.
Yeah, it's just going to be a case of making an educated guess when you do get towards that circle of which area you're going to favor to try and set up, and then just making sure you have like a get out of jail free card so you can escape and you can go into the other direction if the circle doesn't swing your way and doesn't swing where you expected, as there's a little bit of danger here for Lava City boys, and it is going to be Na'Vi on the other end of it looks, but that's going to be two teams who have struggled a little bit in the early stages. I know that Lava City boys had a good game 1, but game 2 they were eliminated in 17, so they need to pick things up here in match number 3. But Na'Vi in general, I mean, they're down in the bottom 5 right now, and we were saying how we feel like this is a make or break day for Na'Vi. I wonder if they're not able to get into the top 10, what that would do for their confidence just as a team in general, not just in this tournament and being eliminated, but like what happens after that.
We'll certainly keep our eyes out. And the thing I think that they'll be most disappointed with so far is the fact that Na'Vi have had 2 zones as well, pretty much. You know, they've been dropping at Fragment West. They've had the zone that was at Fragment West, and they really didn't perform as well as they would have wanted in that game number 1. And then they had a pretty comfortable rotation ahead of the majority of the lobby from Central to that northern zone over at Refinery. So 2 games where the circle isn't something they can use as an excuse, as Sunny actually gets caught out here by the team that is trying to push onto them, and Weigers is that team as they managed to clean him up, and that will be him out of the game almost immediately. What a push that was from Weigers, just holding down this building, maybe just trying not to show presence and catching him off guard a little bit.
Yeah, catch him off guard, and they get some kill points because of it, and I think they'll be pretty happy with that. I expect that Weigers, or I know that Weigers have the ability to perform well in these lobbies, and I feel like a lot has gone against them in these weeks, as Team Purge are going to be setting up with a Caustic as well. We saw how much damage that Caustic did in the previous game, by the way, when that ultimate came down just at the bottom near the train entrance. And that is very scary when a Caustic gets involved and you're just kind of stuck between a load of gas and trying to take a fight, but Vibin are having to back off here. And they are going to be in an engagement. We are going to see a lot of traps coming out from Watson just to try and get into a little bit of a defensive standpoint and maybe retreat, as here is over the top trying to have a little look with the Mastiff. Purple, blue, and a white armor. So they'll want to improve this slightly, and maybe that's why they want to take this fight here.
These buildings inside Geyser are going to be prime real estate, as we see L-Star shots, coming in from distance. They're trying to land on these players in the distance. The Prowler shots not going to be landing either. Yeah, it does look like a lot of teams have decided this will be a Geyser pool here for this circle, so that's why these buildings are being contested. You can have these buildings split, but the more that you can control, obviously, the better it is for your team to not only have somewhere to push, but somewhere to rotate back to and fall back and get your heals off. Big damage coming in from the 301 there from Nidzo, and that is going to push that team back significantly. The question is, do they want to push on this? All the more difficult, though, because of the fact that those Watson fences are up, making that push a little bit more harmful for the team who are trying to do so.
They were just slowly and surely creeping their way up, doing a little bit of damage, but they will retreat now just to get a little bit of a heal off the Watson. Oh, maybe seeing if the other team is going to have a little bit of a peek, but this is going to be a long-winded fight, I feel. This is going to be a fight that could go on for a couple of minutes, realistically, if not longer, as both teams recognize that they are in a very advantageous position right now, and it's not worth them giving up this spot. If they can both just kind of cohabit together in this building, then they're going to be more than happy, but occasionally you're going to get someone who kind of has a look and says, okay, well, the grass looks greener on the other side, so instead they start throwing rocks over the fence, and you get trouble in the neighborhood, right? And you're not going to have friendly neighbors all the time. So we'll see what happens down there in Geyser, but for now, I think they will kind of stand off and wait and see what happens.
So you can see the lobby a little bit split at the moment. I wonder if that's the division there between Pathfinder teams and teams without a Pathfinder. Just say, trying to make that rotation is tough, but there's actually 3 teams at the moment, or 2 teams, I should say, potentially about to engage on the edge of circle around drill sites. So those 2 teams are going to be interesting to watch. One of those teams is Cooler Esports, and Yuki with the charged rifle in hand as well, as you could use that grapple to catch up with his teammates who seem to get the jump on him, maybe just gone before the gun in this particular race. And it's going to be Lava City Boys, the team that you were looking out for to perform in this game number 3, who have decided to take a little bit of a wider rotation here. They do have some time on their side to do so. It looks like they might be trying to move through the tunnel towards Fragment.
And they don't want to take a fight, and you can tell why. Look at them. They do not have the armor to do so. They are very much struggling. They haven't even been able to heal up necessarily to full potential at this point. So they are just trying to get in this circle, and then they'll reevaluate and decide what they're going to do. They'll hope to pick up a few scraps here, I feel. Hope that people have left things behind as they move towards the next circle, but they just didn't really want to take that engagement against a team who had much superior armor, as Wygers are going to be getting into this fight, and Paradise goes down. Crip is still going to be alive alongside Ruab, and they're both going to have to heal up and just leave Paradise down. And, well, he is going to fall. And now here comes the push from just the two of them, but they do back off quite quickly.
19 squads remaining here, so we haven't lost any players from this lobby. Any teams, I should say. Just a reminder that one team, Flex Gang, aren't playing in this last chance qualifier, unfortunately. So don't be too surprised to see a 19-squad lobby every game, as Third Impact now are messing things up a little bit, and they've actually got some Revenant action going in, and also a finisher as well to go alongside it. So if it wasn't scary enough that you got a Revenant team running at you in that death protection, then a finisher should certainly ram that point home for you. The Third Impact, again, pretty good performance from them at the moment. They're set in second place, I believe, in the overall standings. Feeling pretty comfortable with things.
Yeah, and just changing things up and maybe getting themselves prepared for Kings Canyon, where they are going to use Revenant and get a little bit more aggressive, perhaps. I know in the American community, the discussion is like how strong Revenant can be, especially alongside Crypto. And if just the one team is running it, I saw Snipedown was tweeting about saying that you kind of need several teams to be running it for it to be competitive. Otherwise, one team just kind of smacks everyone else around in the lobby. As Wygers will fall, Joke gets that final knock and elimination. And that's going to be our first team out of this match.
So a lot of teams inside of Geyser at the moment. Only 3 teams, I believe, outside of that next circle. You can see it. All the teams kind of buzzing around like ants inside there on the map overhead. Big 100 with the Mastiff there. 17 with a second isn't going to get the job done. And that's going to be Bodyguards here, who will eliminate one of our teams in the lobby. 17 squads remaining, but a third party trying to get involved here as the res was trying to be popped, just shooting through that window. And that team is shooting from the building straight in front of legit Lolly here. He has to put some shots down to keep his teammate safe and sound and get those heals off nice and quickly. He can bring his teammate back into the game as well, as Third Impact are trying to put the pain onto them. 3 teams eliminated, as you can see. Ignore Flex Gang, they're not in the lobby. It's Big P Peora and Wygers who will be out.
I'm excited to see what Third Impact can do with this Revenant Crypto combination, to be honest. I think we're going to start seeing it more and more, especially as we get into finals weekend and maybe teams who are a little bit more practiced, a little bit more well-versed on that composition, as people are getting more comfortable now ever since those meta changes those weeks ago. Na'Vi just having a little scout here. They're in an okay position. They are in the circle, just taking their position underneath this bridge here, which is always an awkward spot, and it does mean you leave yourself somewhat vulnerable from teams pushing from Fragment, but they're okay for now, and I think that's why they're just scouting all these different angles to ensure they don't get caught off guard.
I mean, the fact that Na'Vi are in this position here where, you know, they landed Fragment West and they are going to be one of the last teams to rotate is maybe a bit of a concern for me. Maybe they are playing for Edge of Circle. They do have that Gibraltar, of course, but they've got a couple of teams behind them in Fragment who are currently engaging with a fight, and maybe those shots being fired has kind of indicated that. But look at all the teams who have managed to beat them to the punch, essentially. You've got teams in No Name, you've got all of those teams in Geyser as well. So even if they do manage to pick up KP on these teams rotated in, they're going to be in one of the worst positions to find some real estate as the game starts to move towards its conclusion. Lava City Boys are one of those teams inside City here, and that is, of course, Fragment East. Some shots coming in from Kath Ryan aren't going to land too hard, but the Thermite's going to start burning them, and this is a real opportunity for them to push. The question is, do they want to push and commit onto this fight, onto Cooler? And if I was you, and I saw those shields, I wouldn't be recommending it too much, as Na'Vi are just ahead of Cooler here, and I just wonder if they're going to have a third-party opportunity.
Yeah, Lava City Boys are at least able to find some scraps, get a couple of blue shields, but this is looking so good for Cooler Esports in terms of like what they actually have available. 2 purples and gold is phenomenal for them, but they just need to get into the right position now, or they need to start taking fights and just say, look, we've got such good armor right now. We can start pushing teams. We can start just building up our meds, get some grenades off them as well, get a little bit of utility just by taking down teams who haven't been able to loot as successfully as us. And a team that is prime example of that is Na'Vi. Like, their loot is not great right now, okay? Their weaponry is fairly decent, but their armor is going to potentially let them down. So they need to be careful. And Lava City Boys might also need to be considering what they're going to do in these next 2 minutes before this next circle moves. Are they going to wait and try and third party, or are they going to try and ignite something themselves and hope to be able to take down another team?
Well, they've got a certainly extremely tough rotation to have to make here. As you can see, Caller Esports now having to make their way towards that next circle, pinging where they want to try and rotate to. Still aware that Lava City boys were to the north of them inside of Fragment East, and that's a little flicker of a body there is going to give them that information. The train is popping along as well, which might give Yuki a little opportunity to catch a ride here and jump over the barriers and get a free ticket up to his teammates, which he does. The issue for them is in a minute and 20 seconds, there's going to be so many different teams ahead of them who are holding down positions at the moment to try and fight through to get into this next circle. And one of those teams has won our first 2 games, and that's Outsiders, still set up in this choke.
All right, be real with me now, Mark. How many times have you died to that train? I want you to be completely honest, all right? We're friends here.
I've never died to the train.
Oh, okay.
I've died to a door.
as you do. Okay, well...
me and Hal have both died to doors, all right? Just
so you're comparing yourself to one of the best players in the world.
You made the comparison, is what I'm
yeah,
saying.
True.
You know, that's all I'm saying.
You put it out there, but I mean, we won't talk about the fact that I've died to a train.
Oh yeah, you definitely died to a train, and it was amazing.
I just wanted to. Oh, my voice even went because it's such a bad memory for me. It's just very emotional. Like I didn't like the fact that I
see the fear in your voice came back again.
It was a scary moment. Anyway, moving on. 17 squads left, and the circle getting a little bit smaller. 30 seconds until Ring 3 is going to close. Bodyguards look like they might be under a little bit of fire here. Well, I like this spot. Oh, I did like it until he decided he wanted to dodge out. But they certainly know there are teams around as Na'Vi are going to be under fire, and this is what I was scared about, Mark. If anyone pushed them, their armor wasn't great. And now we're going to have to see... Nimbus is going to have to get away here. In third impact, they get the kills onto Na'Vi. And third impact, with this Revenant Crypto combo, seem to be doing some real damage in this lobby.
Na'Vi out again. So 3 games here on World's Edge, and none of them have been kind to Na'Vi, and that is going to be a real concern moving into Kings Canyon. But for third impact, managing to execute that push beautifully with the Crypto Revenant comp. And one thing I do want to say a little bit about this composition is a lot of teams are saying, you know, you get that free push, etc., but you have no defensive capabilities as this squad, as this lineup, and if you don't execute, you're dead. It really is as simple as that. You get sent back and a team destroys your totem, you really can be left in no man's land. So I think there is a little bit more to it than a lot of people maybe give it credit for to be continually successful with it. I think a lot of teams might use it for the odd pop-off game and try and hope that they can be aggressive with it, but you have to be smart. You have to have brains about you. If you want to get into those end circles, you might be able to push one team and get some KP, but if you do it badly, then you're pretty much out of dodge, and without those ultimates, you're just 3 men walking along with no defensive capabilities.
Just 3 guys walking along, trying to have a good day.
Walking along, man. You know,
it just doesn't work out. No Revenant ultimate to save you. But you are right. But the thing is, teams are starting to perfect it a little bit, and they are finding the right times to push and get aggressive, and that's why it is so terrifying in the right hands, as Lazarus are under quite a lot of fire here. They do have a bit of utility to try and get themselves out of dodge, but Purge are going to be putting some fire in their backside. Down to 14 squads. Lazarus have lost now 2 members and potentially a third there. They are very close to being out of this lobby, and a lot of teams banked on this being a geyser pool, Mark, but it actually is heading up towards the tunnel next to geyser near that vault.
You are going to see it probably ending outside of that vault, just outside that door there, right at the north tip of Geyser. So teams who did kind of guess that it might be going no name and or weren't able to rotate in here are going to be potentially being eliminated on their way through here. And one team who's trying to get involved in a fight is going to be over the top. The problem for them is they're being taken down as we see some big, massive shots coming in from Streamy here. And over the top, who kind of on the back foot for a little bit of that fight, managed to convert on their opportunities. A couple of KP for them, 3 to the name of Streamy. Plus they've managed to get that Wraith portal down as well to get their teammate back up. So big play from over the top here as we move towards our 5th ring here as we're 35 seconds left on the 4th.
And it should be okay. There's enough time where that ult will be able to regenerate before they need it a little bit later. They obviously wanted to get the heal just in the Gibby bubble, but with the bubble dissipating quite quickly, they had to make a very fast, informed decision to use the ultimate just to ensure they were able to get them up and not be taken down by any on-watching players. We see we're down to 10 squads. Cooler Esports taken down. Is a bit of a surprise, really. Execute, Fenerbahce, Lazarus, some teams that have been getting some big points as we are here on our final game of World's Edge, and a final chance for maybe a little bit more of strategy to be employed by some of these teams who might be more comfortable on World's Edge than they will be on Kings Canyon, as the round 4 is going to close in 30 seconds. So a lot of these teams are going to have to start to make their way to this next zone.
Yeah, so tough to do as well with teams ahead of them. One of those teams is Third Impact, who have decided to try and fight their way through this vault. And they're going to have to do so because of the fact that that ring is closing behind them. They're down to a 2-man at the moment as they have lost one of their players. Balonji is going to be going down. And he's the Revenant, so they need to get inside here. They used to use that Crypto Oak to get those shields cracked, and big push coming in here, and it's going to all fall onto the shoulders here of Jazz. Third Impact, leaving it just too late there. And again, even with that Revenant Crypto combo, not able to make it work as Balonji dropped, meaning they couldn't use that Death Totem to give them that death protection in the fight.
Yeah, I think that's the downside. If you lose that Revenant early, then you are kind of caught urinating toward the wind, some might say. But now for Dead Inside, they have lost one, and they are in a sticky situation here. There are a couple of players just over towards their west, but some big shots here with the Wingman. Does actually manage to get legit Lolly down there, and continues to press fire here. Sajama doing really well to be a nuisance.
Yeah, a little bit of a cheeky spot. You can fall down behind that building that he is shooting at. So if a team can manage to get him down into that position, as he does set up a little jump zip there to try and get some angles, and there is that position I'm talking about here. So even with that knock, the player managed to fall back down here, legit Lolly, into this position to get revived by his teammates and live to find another day, as Dead Inside trying to take advantage of that situation they created. The only issue for them is that they have lost Standing X, their Wraith player, so the jump zip, again, trying to be used to get those angles. The roof going to be used as well to try and hit these shots, as he does manage to hit a double 47 as well, but shots coming in from the north of Geyser are going to force Sajama back here, and with 20 seconds left until that ring closes, they need to pay attention to that team to their north and take them out as quickly as possible, otherwise they're just going to be getting shot in the back.
This is such a long fight. It's elongated at this point where both are just weakening each other and their meds aren't great. The Wraith portal is going to pop out, as you can see, out of the window just to try and get them into a certain situation. However, for Purge, well, do they have a Wraith portal to work with? How are they going to get out of this? Or are they just going to try and force their way up to the high ground and just take the gunfight? As here they go. They know there is a Wraith behind them. Disbelief manages to get one. Exorcism are going to be in prime position to get all these oncoming players here. So much damage being done with this devotion as well.
The only problem is he's only got one more bullet to work with, and then it's just a Peacekeeper here for Taskmaster of Exorcism as he tries to stay alive and pick up some of these KP along the way. And all he really did in that situation, to be honest with you, was drop shields as Ozus comes in now to try and pick up some of those KP. Figvam in a great position here with the fully automatic Prowler to work with as well. Lots of shots going to be landed, and they're good enough for them to convert on this third game here, the final game on World's Edge, and Figvam with the priority position will manage to clean up all of those players moving in from the east, and a fairly simple job for them in the end. A lot of the damage was done for them. It was just a case of holding that fire until that last moment, and they managed to take advantage.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that Figvam were able to rotate quite early to that kind of northern side of Geyser, and they were in the perfect position. That circle just kept coming towards them, and it just meant they didn't really have to move. And as long as they picked their time right and they picked which fight they wanted to take, they were always going to have success. But it still takes a little bit of decision making to actually push out at the right time, because if you push out at the wrong time and you find yourself suddenly vulnerable to maybe a team rotating a little bit later or earlier, then you are going to get yourself pinched. So well played from Figvam, and we did say they were one of the teams that needed to step up, Marks. They were just outside of that top 10 going into match number 3. However, that is very much going to help their chances of getting to the finals this weekend.
Yeah, big, massive shots here. I think there was 100 and 112 exchange between the two players, and when my Mastiff shoots, it hits for 16. But that's the accuracy of these players. That's how good they are, as we're going to jump on board with the highlights here and see this fight that did go down between Over the Top, who managed to win this one towards the end game. But it was just a case of so many teams in those Geyser buildings having to rotate late into that position. No one wanted to take the risk of rotating early and trying to take that position off of Figvam. And that was the difference, really, between them being able to close that game out and coming under pressure a little bit earlier.
Yeah, a lot of pressure, really. This fight just made me laugh. Like, the fact they were just watching each other through the glass, it always is one of the most fun things with endgames, is when you know where they are, but you just can't quite get to them because you're going to get shot by someone else. But in the end, Figvam with priority positioning, as you say. And ultimately, now they have done enough to warrant themselves as a top 10 side. A win goes so far, we're just going to have to see how much kill points they were able to pick up, whether that's going to shift them maybe even towards the top 5 in this lobby or just outside it. And that gives you not only the confidence going into these next 3 games, but also like the belief that, okay, we actually can hang with this lobby. We can win these lobbies, so there's no reason why we can't get to the finals.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was the point I was going to make there about FigFam. You know, outside that top 10, they've just had that big win. And a win in this kind of lobby, in this last chance qualifier situation, is worth so much more than previous tournaments, because it is, you know, going to pretty much guarantee you inside that top 10 as long as you've got some points on the board. The question coming into it was, can OS do back to back to back to back? Unfortunately, they couldn't in that game, but they did have a pretty good game themselves. So just looking across the winners of our 3 games so far, World's Edge is now, of course, done. And now it's King's Canyon time, Dan. And the question is here, are we going to see comp changes? Are we going to see different things? Well, we'll find out after this quick break, because World's Edge is done. Get ready for King's Canyon. Welcome back, Apex fans, once again to the GLL Masters Summer. Hope you had a little refresher there, because we certainly have, as we get ready to move into King's Canyon. Dan Gaskin, the king of King's Canyon. How you feeling about this? Because these teams now, it's kind of do or die for them, right? King's Canyon gives them that opportunity to make it up those points they need to get into the top 10. But as I say, just 3 more games to go.
This is where things start to get a little bit spicy, Mark. Kings Canyon is where I feel at home. This is where teams are going to get more aggressive. We're going to see things a little bit different. We're going to see teams maybe get a little eliminated a little bit earlier than they would on World's Edge. We can take a quick look at the scoreboard from the last game. Exorcism actually ended up finishing in first thanks to their kill points. They had an 18-point total. FigVam only picking up the 4 kills, but of course their placement points from winning the game still has them quite high up on this leaderboard. And then third Impact. I mean, we talked about the kind of Crypto plus Revenant, and we were questioning it, like, is it sustainable? Well, they got 10 kill points, and then they still managed to find themselves in third, Mark. So if they can continue to do the same thing in King's Canyon, then that is going to be a scary factor.
Well, this is the overall after match 3 then, and the top 10 is what you should be looking at. They're the teams who will make it through to our grand finals to join the 10 teams who have already managed to qualify. Lava City Boys, 4 points behind Team Purge in 10th, excuse me. So many points still to be made in this last 3 games, and you could arguably say that anyone in that bottom 19 teams there, 11th to 19th, as Flex Gang will not be competing today for whatever reason, can still make it through with a big win.
They could still make it through with a big win, but honestly, I look at some of those teams who were down at the bottom, Mark, and Na'Vi, like, honestly, they have to step things up now. We need to see them perform on King's Canyon, because if they allow the same things to happen on World's Edge, we won't be seeing them in the finals. They need to start making up ground now, or if they don't do it in Game 4, then I'm worried about them in Games 5 and 6. But we're kicking things off onto King's Canyon anyway, and I always love King's Canyon. It feels like home. I love going back to it. And we're starting things off with FigFam, who, of course, picked up that final victory on World's Edge. And a nice purple armor just to start off with.
A purple armor and an awful grapple coming in from Sand there. I think if he would have walked, he would have continued at the same pace. But hey, what do I know? You can see he's going to be able to start his looting pattern here. And it looks like at the moment, everyone's kind of comfortable across the map and found their own little POI to work with. FigFam, a little bit of a split drop there, actually dropping into slums here. And of course, around the pit area. So luckily, no contest. You can see a little bit of a diversion of the flight path down there from the player who did land in the pit as well, just to make sure that he was completely safe. But over to Hydro Dam now, and dead inside. One of those teams who are currently inside of our top 10 are going to have a fairly comfortable loot rotation as well. And everything's looking pretty comfortable for teams at the start of this, Dan. And no surprises here. I don't think anyone's going to want to take those risks until they need to as we enter our final 3 games.
Well, Dead Inside are going to give us some vision of this next circle and where it might be moving as well. Or at least they were, but then the Observer decided they hate me, which is fine. Like, I get it. Look, it's okay. Thank you. So northeast is where we're going to be heading then, just between Artillery and Capacitor. I like this circle, personally. I think this is one of the better circles. It means those teams who do reside in Artillery get to just rotate a little bit downward. But you have a long rotation from those from the south, which means you get quite a lot of juicy engagements towards the middle of the map, in between all those canyons, in between all those choke points that are available.
No engagement to speak of so far here on King's Canyon. And although we do normally say, you know, it's a map where the close quarters of the map in comparison to World's Edge kind of initiate a lot more fights than what we would see on World's Edge. I'm kind of expecting a little bit of a cagey first game here, to be honest with you, because of the fact that, you know, so much is on the line for these teams. It's a case of do or die for them. If they don't qualify in that top 10, they're out of the GLL Masters Summer and won't make it through to that grand finals where the money is available. So I think teams are going to be a little bit more cautious in this game. However, game 5 and 6, I really do expect to see that pace pick up.
It is funny as well. I remember when Kings Canyon first changed over to World's Edge, and like everyone was like, "Oh, bring back Kings Canyon! It's so much more competitive." But now things have changed ever so slightly with like the loot pool and whatnot is available, and some people are just more comfortable on certain maps, and I think that's fine. I think it's quite nice to have that diversity and have the two maps available, so we can see a difference in playstyles. As bodyguards are under a little bit of fire here, but they do have decent ground to work with. They've got a lot of buildings to dip in and out of as well. So they can retreat ever so slightly, regroup, and then decide whether they want to actually take this fight or not.
So 2 teams in this compound, which is going to be a pretty good area to hold down. You can see well inside that second circle, but they are just across from each other. Lava City boys will be looking across. I believe that was finalized, who were inside that second building. So we're going to see a little bit of an engagement here. And again, the thing about Kings Canyon, the longer that this fight takes, the longer it gives an opportunity for a third party to come in. So that's why you're going to see Lava City boys here actually choosing to disengage and maybe look to a third party a fight of their own. But there's so many eyes already on these teams who are rotating center zone early that you can see why they're a little bit nervous, why they're a little bit shaky on making those engagements early.
Yeah, Lava City boys just trying to take a little bit more high ground and potentially try and have a little bit of gatekeeping here to watch teams that are going to be rotating from the southwest. A couple of teams are flying in as well from these balloons, and well, you got to be careful. Are they going to be dropping on you, or are they going past you? Because if they're going past you, that is potentially a little bit of a threat later on down the line. So you have to keep a keen eye as to where they are positioning themselves, where they're going to be moving, and just kind of keep that in the memory bank. Because here is Third Impact again. They are back on the Revenant and the Crypto and looking to get aggressive. The Revenant Ultimate is out, and here they are getting in the faces of their opposition.
Yeah, not much death protection left, and Jazz is actually going to be reset here to that totem, so it's going to be up to his teammates. I'm not sure if they did manage to completely wipe that team. They got some knocks, and there is going to be one team taken out, and it's actually at the hands of Fenerbahce Esports, I do believe. Exorcism down to 1. Taskmaster, the last man alive for them, as he's trying to sneak his way along and be a rat, basically. Just be a rat. Be one with the rat.
Be one with the rat. And I'm excited for rats, because it means that maybe I can perform a little bit of a poem of my own later on. But the bombardment will be... I might have something available for you. We'll see. It depends when the moment's right. But Weigers are under a lot of trouble here. And they do perform a couple of good shots just to stay alive, but Weigers... Well, this is not good. They are stuck between a rock and a hard place. All the ultimates coming down. Now everyone wants a piece of this. They are just candy to be taken here.
The team that's pushing them is Na'Vi as well, so this is a huge fight for Na'Vi, and I think the Na'Vi have actually managed to win that. The only problem is, here comes a third party, and Lava City boys are them, and that is going to be Na'Vi out again, I believe. So Na'Vi have not had a day to remember here. They've not really had a tournament to remember so far in the GLL Masters Summer, and again, trying to be aggressive, trying to put up KP, and excuse me again, because 9Imps has managed to escape here. But losing 2 teammates that early on here for Na'Vi, we talked about their confidence, we talked about how things haven't gone their way, and that's the last thing you want to be happening.
He's going to try and rat out. This seems like an appropriate time for my poem.
Okay.
No, not yet. No, not yet. No, not yet. No, it's not. It's not right. There's a fight happening. It doesn't seem appropriate. I don't want to ruin it, all right? I don't want to do it at the wrong time. It's like some big shots coming out from Mimo here on Big PP. I shouldn't shorten that name. It's even worse if I shorten the name, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I'm leaving that. I'm not touching that. I'm sorry. No, Big PP Aura. I love your name. I'm all for it. Zanma here trying to just find himself a little spot to pop a battery.
Here we go.
You see, okay, Dan Gaskin. Ladies and gentlemen, the poetic stylings of Daniel Gaskin.
Rat, rat, oh where art thou, little rat? Let's hope your enemies will be blind as a bat. Onzet's poem was a little short. Perhaps he panicked and had to abort. So here is a poem with proper length. Let's pray for this rat's individual strength. Amen.
Brilliant. Brilliant stuff, Daniel Gaskin. Love that. Absolutely love that. It really has been one of the most artistic Apex Legends broadcasts that we've had so far. And I don't know if I should, say you're lucky to the viewers or apologize. I'm kind of caught between the two at the moment with our poetry skills. But 9Imps is one of those rats who is still alive in this game and needs to be honest with you, perform something absolutely huge for Na'Vi, not just in this game, but for their tournament lives as we hop on board with Vibin, who are just doing that inside of the next circle as well, and up on this high ground, just behind the big shield that leads into Capacitor. And now they're going to move up to this high ground as a team, as a as a 3-stack and look to maybe overlook one of these chokes just to their west here. And you can see some shots being rung out across Kings Canyon towards that ping as well. And biting here with the Evo shield is going to have to charge that thing up, but with a charged rifle in his back pocket, it's certainly going to be a lot easier to do as we see Third Impact now, once again looking to execute on this Crypto Revenant push. The question is, can they convert as Jazaz gets the first down? There's a massive shot with a second, but they can't quite convert. They will be able to move back in through that portal.
Yeah, the portal's set up and it's perfect, but they're right into caustic gas, and Jazz has to be careful here. He is very, very low, but is able to back away. That's also one of the advantages of having the portal, is you can back off, not only get aggressive, but they are going to be kill leader. And Vibin are down to just 2 now. So have to be a little bit careful here. They do have the high ground though, so they can kind of rain fire down from above here. And they can be quite detrimental to a lot of these teams. That charge rifle is going to be a real nuisance to those just trying to get away. And the banner has been gained, so Joke can potentially be brought back here.
We can see that Vibin have, as you say, managed to get the banner. However, another thing to point out as well is the gold prowler in the hands of Knights, and there's a couple of gold items here on the revamped Kings Canyon that you can find dropped around the map in those little vaults, the little underground vaults, and they obviously know exactly where the location is of that prowler. As Third Impact now, unfortunately for them, looks like one of their pushes hasn't come off here, and now they're going to be left with the Crypto combination, as the Revenant on Balanji has been taken down. So that makes their life a little bit tougher here. We talked about how execution on those pushes kind of needs to be perfect if you're running this composition, and for them, obviously, something didn't quite go right here, and they're going to have to get their teammate back into this game.
Execute in a little bit of trouble here. Kose's going to have to get out of dodge and try and retreat to get to his teammates, otherwise we might have seen him fall, but at least he's been able to escape with a decent health total. Just needs to use one bat to get back up. But, I mean, earlier we obviously saw the one player from Na'Vi just being the last survivor, and I mentioned at the start of the broadcast, like, what separates a good team from one of the best teams is being able to, well, do something as a rat. Well, he has done just that. He's been able to not only survive, but also get a teammate back up. So Na'Vi, very much still alive, still within a chance of picking up some good points here. And I wonder whether this could be the game that kind of propels them into success in this last chance qualifier.
Well, that's a big play from 9imps to get Claws back into this game. The Watson, you can see the respawn has timed out on Faizu, so he won't be in the game. But a 2-man is better than a 1-man in this situation here for Na'Vi. And this really is a monumental game for them in the GLL Masters Summer, maybe even more than that, looking ahead at future tournaments as well. We don't want to speculate too much as we see Gibraltar and Wraith getting pretty comfortable with each other behind a couple of caustic traps as well. And that, do you know what? That looks like a watercolor painting, doesn't it? Something you'd have on your wall. You know, very, very nice. Couldn't think of a better word than nice.
I mean, when the only word is nice,
look, it's a 3-man. It's a 3-man. There's
so
a caustic in the tree.
Oh, really? Are we going to go there now? We already had a poem from you. Are we going to start getting songs?
I'm going to go... No, I was going to go full Attenborough, but
oh, okay.
I decided to back out of it, to be honest with you. No one can do that man justice. He's a wonderful man. He's a wizard.
He is indeed. Just as some of these players on the sticks or the keyboard, depending on which peripherals they are going to be using as Third Impact, well, it might be getting more aggressive here yet again. Crypto ult is going to be popped, and that is going to be the chance for people to push in and try and do some damage. And that's going to be nice falling to Balanji, and it's going to be kill upon kill upon kill for Third Impact as they yet again prove how good Revenant can be in the right hands.
And again, Kings Canyon does get the opportunity to maybe get those ultimates up a little bit more. You have those charge towers as well, one of the new additions to the revamped Kings Canyon, which does give you those ultimate abilities instantly if you can hit those charge towers, so you get more chances to combine those ultimates together and really, really punish teams across this map. So, kind of works for me. And you can see Third Impact at the moment making it work, as Vibin unfortunately have been knocked out of the lobby. You can see Lava City Boys, Purge, Weigers over the top also eliminated, as we're down to 14 squads here. As we're not even in towards our fourth circle with 1 minute 50 left on the third. But Na'Vi now just on the edge. You can see they're going to have to work their way through this choke. And the team's still alive the other side towards Capacitor. It's going to be a pretty tough rotation for them here.
Which is why it looked like they were heading to try and rotate all the way around, go back into the circle, take a little bit of a chunk, and then maybe rotate into a different angle where they don't have to go through the choke point that you were talking of, as outsiders still with a healthy total here. Of course, they won matches 1 and 2. If you have only just joined us in this broadcast, they were phenomenal on World's Edge. And I imagine they would try and continue the same success coming here onto Kings Canyon as Figvam were our winners from Game 3 on World's Edge. And they were able to find themselves in the perfect spot in the end game with that last one. And I wonder whether they'll be able to do something similar here. Doesn't look like it's going to be as similar as the last game because they're under a lot of pressure right now.
Yeah, so Velsi managed to get away there, but it was a little bit of a shaky moment for him as he had to hit his Q to go into the void to just avoid that damage. And 47 seconds left, and the difficulty here for Figvam is they need to rotate out, and that's why you're seeing that Wraith portal being put down to force that rotation. You can see the Pathfinder as well trying to provide some covering shots to make sure that Wraith can get that portal down safely. Lazarus are the team who are above them, but now that team has managed to rotate ahead of them, and then they could be stuck between somewhat of a rock and a hard place, but able to hit this Pathfinder beacon is going to be huge for them to see where that next ring is for them. And look at this, it's finishing on that compound, potentially on that high ground just to the north of Capacitor, some of the new buildings that have been added to Kings Canyon since its original inception. So it's interested to see how that end circle does play, as now Lazarus are going to make their move in towards that circle.
Yeah, they're heading their way, and it's about time because this circle is going to be closing, and they are going to have a lot of damage coming from above. Figvam in a great spot now to just rain down hell on those who are going to be below them, but they have to be careful as to where they're getting shot from at the same time. Just do enough damage and take enough shots at people so that they aren't able to fire comfortably back at you, but also being well aware of what else is available and where else you could be shot from, as they are going to have to rotate eventually. And they do have the Pathfinder Zip to do so, and that's going to be some big damage coming out from the R99. Mastiff gets whipped out, and that, I think, is going to be a wipe onto Execute. 4 kills now for Ballon G, and Na'Vi are doing a little bit of work here.
This is big. This is big from Na'Vi. As you say, big shots from them. As there's a 2-man to take that team down. Lazarus, who are kind of gatekeeping their way in towards that zone, or trying to gatekeep Figvam, who managed to relocate themselves. And now they're coming under fire. You can see that is going to be Na'Vi who are in that position. Looks like they're going to try and move in towards that shuttle that is just below them. You can see a team up on the height just to the south of them as well with that Gibby bubble that's going to be there. So Na'Vi kind of in a sticky spot here as Figvam have decided to try and push this. Maybe they realize it's a 2-man here and they're going to try and make this play as they're going to force them through the portal, but shots going to be exchanged. Question is, can we keep an eye on that kill feed? Are Na'Vi going to be able to survive this?
Well, they block off the portal to come back. Na'Vi trying to get to the shuttle, but now they are just going to have to try and escape using every little nook and cranny to dodge and dip out of the way. But now Na'Vi fall, but at least they did better. They were able to get into that top 10 and get some KP, which is pretty decent considering they were down to just 1 man at one point in the early stages of this game. But unfortunately, they were just sussed out. But now Fenerbahce are having a little sniff on this one. They realize there is potential KP below them, and they are quite far away from the circle. So it comes back to our original conversation of you need to know when to hold and when to fold, and when you need to push in and get aggressive and try and take advantage of maybe some weaker positioning from your enemies so that you can pick up not free KP, but easier KP.
Phoenix was trying to be a little bit sneaky here, but he's going to be called out. His footsteps were too loud for the team that were looking onto him, as Messenger now is going to be the last alive. Has to dodge and dip, and he's got not much HP to work with. And what a push that was from Fenerbahce Esports. They should be able to get the armor swaps as well. And as a 2-man to wipe that 3-man, that's absolutely huge for them. As outsiders now looking on towards the edge of the circle and all this carnage that's going down. Can they pick up some KP on these teams that are weak? It looks like they've decided to rotate back, get those heals off, as Cooler Esports are lighting up the kill feed as well, as Figvam now involved in a battle once more.
Yeah, Figvam are going to want to get a little bit aggressive on that one player who was pushing up towards them, but carry does go down. It looks like it's going to be okay because Draconian and Pinky Finky fall, so that's going to be Fenerbahce out, and we're down now to just our last 5 squads. But shout out to Fenerbahce for still doing a good job, even though they only had the 2 players remaining. But Figvam still very healthy. Our winners of Game 3 might be able to get some decent placement points here, but are they going to be able to position themselves to get into a potential winning position? No, but maybe outsiders could, but they're also caught on the rotation here. Both these teams trying to work their way into this next circle mark.
Yeah, outsiders should be pretty comfortable here. They have high ground. They have that zip as well to try and rotate out. They have complete control of this choke. And they've just got teams walking into them. And that's why you can see them just cleaning up kills in the feed. And now we have 4 teams remaining as outsiders are in a pretty comfortable position here. However, just look at that circle pull towards those buildings up on that high ground. It's actually going to finish, I believe, in the water or around the waterfall. that is right at the north of the revamped Kings Canyon. So an interesting end circle here. Although with only 4 squads remaining, there should be plenty of space for these teams to find somewhere to play from. And you can see Ysilta here on that Evo shield. 148 damage for him to level that up to full red. And going into this endgame, that'd be massive for them.
Would be massive. Definitely potential to do so as well. All teams seem to have an idea of where or whereabouts everyone resides at this point. So you can see them checking multiple angles and just pinging each other. But there is going to be a little bit of a push here. Cooler have to be careful because there's a team above them. And maybe they're going to retreat, try and get inside somewhere, just so they have a little bit more cover, because outsiders, well, they are outside them right now and definitely can do some real damage from this height. And Nook is going to fall on Finalize, so now this is going to be a little bit tricky for them. We are going to see YDN getting it up in their face, but 2 fall for YDN as well. And now we just see so much damage coming down. The bombardment also comes through. The Gibby ult is doing enough, really, to make this fight so difficult for both teams.
You feel like outsiders have this game in their hands. If they can win a fight and maybe get a couple of armor swaps onto Kada as well, and Mistral, and that would certainly help their chances. Just trying to get the thirst on that player down low as well, which they should be able to do pretty comfortably, as Finalize now are down to those final players, and that final moment won't be good for them, as Cooler, actually, excuse me, are the other team who are involved. So we've got outsiders versus Cooler. The armor advantage very much with outsiders, and with with Cooler. Plus they have the Kraber to work with. One big shot here from Rowe, and this could open it up for the push.
They are in the next circle, but outsiders are going to be above them. And as you say, this Kraber could be huge. You need to hit your shots, but he's got the R99 out instead, and that's going to be the first down. Mistral falls, and now Cooler have the player advantage and arguably should be winning this game.
Shots from Ysilta is going to back that push down, though, and Yuki does actually fall. So it's a 2v2 situation now. Shots again with the Mastiff, good ones as well. As Rowe is going to be, I believe, the last player alive here for Cooler. He's in a 1v1. He manages to get some shots down. Ysilta, though, he clutches up in the last moment with the wingman shot, and outsiders turn that one around to win their 3rd game out of 4 today. And sometimes it comes down to those clutch moments. And it was a clutch moment to close it out. Beautiful wingman shot to close that game out.
Yeah, and I mean, considering the fact that they had the high ground but didn't have the armor advantage, it means it was such an iffy fight for them, but some big shots being landed with the Mastiff just to allow them to kind of get close, get up, and aggressive and personal in their face. And then I think there was one armor swap as well, which really made the difference. But I thought that Cooler were going to be able to do a little bit better with the armor they had available, but it was just such a difficult push, considering they had to just constantly be looking up. There were several angles that they were being shot from at the same time. It was just an uncomfortable fight for them. And it seems like Cooler versus Outsiders seems to be a common fight as we get to these end games now. Both these teams performing very well in these lobbies, and I think that's what we expected when we certainly looked at which teams came close to getting into those top 10. Both these teams were on that list. Outsiders finished in 11th. They were so close, like 20 points off of getting into the top 10. And then Cooler, they were down in 14th. So 2 teams who really have shown what they're made of in this tournament.
And outsiders just making that late rotation in from this choke, and Cooler, you could see they really did have the opportunity maybe to win this, but it was the knock onto Yuki here, I believe, that turned it into a 2v2. It came down to the 1v1, and the grapple and this wingman shot flicks onto his head to finish that off. And again, Pathfinder in those 1v1 situations, you got that grapple in the bag, and sometimes you can throw people off if you can land and hit that beautiful shot to close things out.
He did enough damage as well in the endgame to level up that Evo shield. It wasn't the swap that I thought. It was just getting it up to red and then being able to heal up. That just made him such a powerhouse in that final 1v1, just being able to do so much damage. But, I mean, outsiders look so good. But I guess we need to be focusing on teams a little bit lower down in the leaderboard, because we already know outsiders are picking up enough points here. They're going to be in the finals. But it's those teams who are struggling to pick up the points that are outside of that top 10. I mean, Na'Vi had a better game. Like, fair enough to them. They went down to just 1, and we were kind of umming and ahhing about it. Are they going to be able to succeed? They were able to pick up another man. They got some KP to work with. It's not going to be enough to project them into the top 10, but maybe it's going to be enough of a boost to at least give them the confidence in these next couple of games.
Yeah, sometimes you need to have your back against the wall to perform at your best, and Na'Vi managed to get some points on the board to keep their dreams alive here of qualification to our grand finals. Game number 4 is in the books. We're going to take another break now, but game number 5 is just around the corner. Only a few games left today. Welcome back again, Apex fans, and it is crunch time for these teams now as we only have 2 more games remaining in the GLL Masters Summer for our last chance qualifier. Dan, we've just seen OS take home their 3rd win out of 4 games so far. They have been phenomenal today, but this is how things look after that game. Outsiders, no surprise to see them at the top of the tables, but some notable names still need those points on the board, and Na'Vi did manage to get some of those.
Like, 3rd impact, 3 placement points, but they're still up in 3rd because 11 kills. Like, this Revenant Crypto is working out for them. Yes, okay, they're not necessarily getting to the late game, but it doesn't really matter for them. They're having fun. They're still at the top or thereabouts of the leaderboards as well when we look at the overall. So I'm impressed with what they've had to offer. Fenerbahce, though, picking up some big points, so that's impressive for them. But this is the overall leaderboards. This is how we find ourselves after 4 matches. So even after a better performance from Na'Vi, they're still down in 17th, and they are still 9 points short of top 10. But that is at least more achievable across 2 games than what it was looking like previous when they only had the 1 point before that game. The other teams just outside Fenerbahce and finalized 2 points off dead inside at the moment. So they're teams we need to focus on. Lava City Boys, Purge, they all have the potential to jump into this top 10 with a decent game.
We're going to be dropping straight into our next game, I believe. No messing around here as game number 5 is ready to go. Back on Kings Canyon once more here. Outsiders is who will be following off the drop. And 3 wins out of 4 just shows how good they have been today. And having watched this team for a fairly long time now in the EMEA region, both in this tournament and other ones as well, they really have been one of those teams who can have outstanding days. And this is just another example of that.
Yeah, and I think this is just them kind of making a statement as, all right, we didn't make that top 10 automatically, and we were so close, but we are capable of competing, and we will get to those finals, and they're going to get to these finals. I mean, they've already qualified for the finals with how this works, but now they need to kind of push on from that and use this as good practice so that when we do get to the finals this weekend, they don't just fall short. They're not just a kind of, we only perform well in slightly lesser ranked lobbies. Instead, they need to be able to take what they've done in these lobbies and do the same thing against some of the bigger and better teams in the EMEA region.
And we can see that Pathfinder beacon as well, showing us where that second ring is going to be. Some of Cage involved, some of Capacitor, and of course some of Labs there as well. You can see the farm is going to be involved, where there is a beacon as well for teams to hit, and hitting that on a rotation would be absolutely massive for a lot of players. But an interesting circle, you see where it's going to be pinged. A little compound just to the north of Cage has been pinged as a potential end circle here. And also, you have that little end circle, which is just on the slope towards the east, of the Cage. So that's where teams are kind of thinking this is going to be located. But for teams down on the west side of the map, it's quite a way to travel for them. And we'll have to see if they decide to play Edge. We'll try and get there as quickly as possible on a couple of balloons, as we do have the opportunity to look on the right-hand side of our screen as well and see the gameplay continuing as the Gold Sentinel, one of those weapons that can be found in one of those underground vaults, is going to be picked up here by our team, who have managed to qualify already with their fantastic performance today, and that is, of course, Outsiders.
Yeah, you were talking about those teams on the west side, like towards airbase. The only trouble with a circle like this when you're trying to rotate from that way is you choose as to whether you want to go through bunker or not. And if bunker's not in the next circle, then you might be okay. There's not likely to be a team in there waiting for you because they've probably already moved on and tried to get into the circle themselves. But with this circle, bunker is slightly still in. There is an area where people could just wait and hide out and just try and be a nuisance, pick up some KP, whilst also kind of reevaluating as to how they're going to push into the next circle as well. But more and more teams getting information as to where the next circle is going to be. Outsiders are going to be next on that list, and everyone just kind of having a little think. All right, well, where do we want to go? Where do we think this one's going to be finishing? That'll be the discussion that's with the comms right now. But also for Outsiders, at this point, do they just start hunting people down and going for kills? I mean, I said right at the start of this game, I'd like to see them practice as if this is like a very serious lobby, as if they can pretend that there are other teams here that are maybe not in the lobby that they should be, that didn't actually find themselves in this last chance, instead qualified for the final as well. That was an inside view that I never want to see ever again. That was terrifying. But I'd like to see them take it seriously still, even though they have already qualified.
There is going to be a battle going on here between Finalized and OTT, and Over the Top, unfortunately for them, are very much on the back foot in this. Finalized will get the clean sweep onto them, 3 KP on the board, and here in Map Room as well, the opportunity to hit that scanner as well to find out where those teams are currently set up and it's a much better way to try and locate a rotation and a safe path towards that next zone as well. But not only that, they're going to get plenty of loot to work with as well. And they're one of the only teams at the moment who are kind of quite far outside of that ring. I'm going to have to make their way in, but with 3 KP on the board for them, they're going to feel pretty confident about it. And another team who is just KP heavy at the moment is, of course, Third Impact with a Revenant Crypto comp and looking to put it to work again here, Dan.
Yeah, they just want to get in the face of people now. Like, I don't want to say they've given up caring, but they just don't care about placement as much as they do KP. They are really trying to focus on this aggressive meta, trying to take down teams, get those KP early, and if they find themselves in a good placement because of that, then great. But I really like that they're using this time now to try and practice this comp ever so slightly, because I do feel like when we get to the weekend, we are going to see a little bit more Revenant and Crypto. You can disagree, but especially in America, I think we're going to see it a little bit more. So I like the fact they're trying to put it into practice here.
Yeah, we'll have to see, of course. There's a lot of time. I say a lot of time. I was about to say a lot of time between now and the finals. There's one day. There's one day. Yeah, there's one day. So completely disregard what I said. But it will be interesting to see if a couple more teams do adapt it and, you know, maybe put some practice in, or have been putting some practice in, but just didn't feel quite confident enough today to put that work in. But one team who has been pretty confident so far is Lazarus Esports, as they're up at the top of Cage here, pretty much center map. An area that was, of course, made famous by TSM in the early days of Apex Legends competitive, where they would drop and dominate, to be honest with you, the competition. But they've got to make their way potentially towards that circle. And this is where a lot of pings have been coming in. This little compound here, the Forest Station, just to the north of the Cage. But the Caustic Ultimate is going to force this team back, execute to reset and get those shields back up. And that's going to buy enough time for the team who was holding them off to maybe get some shots in and get a push.
Well, that was actually Galatorix's ult. Like, he popped that. He was the Caustic who did so, but I think he made things a bit of a nuisance for his team to actually push in. Maybe a lack of communication there, but Cozy is going to take quite a chunk of damage there. So they need to be careful, because there's going to be a lot of noise right now, and a lot of teams will probably be thinking, all right, we could potentially third-party this, and it's going to be Na'Vi on the inside, and that's going to be 2 that have already fallen. It could potentially be Na'Vi out yet again in the early stages here, unless we see something miraculous, but we are not going to. Goodbye, Na'Vi. They fall in 16th.
So for Na'Vi, that means last game or bust for them as far as qualification for a grand finals this weekend is concerned. Lava City boys, again, seem to be winning so many fights today in this lobby, which certainly bodes well for them as they move into the farm here. And I'm going to have to keep moving, of course, towards that next circle as well. But Bodyguards, well, they are the team who are holding down this compound at the moment that I was talking about. The Forest Station just to the north of Cage, but they are actually having to split it at the moment as Execute have managed to make their way back in and have 2 defensive characters here. One team with a Watson and one team with the Caustic is going to mean that they're going to kind of posture up against each other here, and I don't think either team is going to be, you know, too keen on making that initial movement for a push.
Just 2 ships passing in the night at the moment, just watching each other and letting each other be. And maybe a little bit later, they'll decide to turn those ships around and then go full gung-ho, and a couple of cannons will be popped, and well, maybe it was a little bit sooner than I expected. That's going to be the door ripped off, and they said, actually, you look a little bit too comfortable in that building. We don't like the fact that you have a door and we don't, so they get rid of it, and that's fine. I respect that.
Cozy here trying to slide across and maybe look for an angle, and it looks like Execute are pretty keen on maybe making a push, as Bodyguards don't have the armor advantage in this fight, and maybe that's some information they've managed to pick up from a couple of those pop shots that have gone in. You're seeing those white armors pop, and when that ult potentially might run out here for Bodyguards, that might be the time for the team across from them to make that push, as now you're going to see the Caustic Ultimate being used to force them out, and that was fantastic play from them, holding on to that Caustic ult until that Watson gen was destroyed to then make that push. You can see the portal out though, although one player has gone down here as Galatrix managed to take down Messenger. Kozu will get the finish on it, and that is going to be them managing to just about get out of dodge, but no, Phoenix is going to be the last man alive. The team up on top of the Cage here is raining down shots, and now it's up to Phoenix to become the rat once more, as round 1 is going to be closing, but Lazarus have those eyes on him. They know exactly where he's trying to hole up.
Yeah, he just needs to get out of the way a little bit, try and find himself a new cubby hole to reside in before he can really think about ratting his way to the end. But maybe he has been able to survive and get away here. No, as I say that, a couple more bullets are going to be flying in left, right, and center. He's going to have to do his best to thrust slide all round and get into a new position. But there's always the scary possibility, Mark, of you finding yet another team. But it does look like he has successfully ratted his way out. I mean, do you have another rat rebuttal? Is there any more poems, or was mine just too good and it's kind of knocked your socks off?
It's funny you should ask.
Is it?
Funny you should ask, because I've been working, because I wasn't happy about that, because you kind of showed me up and you said that my poem was so short. So here we go.
Okay.
Clear my throat. It starts the same, by the way, just to, not build you up too much.
All right.
All right. Rat cam, last player alive. You look oh so lonely as you try to survive. Do you have meds as you bend at the knee? This is King's Canyon. Should you hide in a tree? I'm often the rat as my team cannot hit shots. One of them is Dan Gaskin. That man is a bot.
I feel personally attacked, but I love it. That was great. Well done. Round of applause. Oh, perfect. We actually have a round of applause.
Oh, I'm going to cry. Stop. I'm going to cry. Nobody wants to see a grown man cry on screen. And nobody wants to see Fenix die, as he has to stay alive here for Bodyguards, as they are in a pretty good position inside that top 10. But enough about poems for today. I think we should wrap it up there, the poem thing. Let's leave that to one side, as these teams are competing for these last 10 places. Lazarus Esports still up on top of Cage here, still comfy in that next zone as well. And such a good position to hold. We know how good the top of Cage is. So difficult to access for other teams who might maybe want to try and have a push. And when he's got a longbow in your hands as well. Although only a one-time HCOG on it, so not the most distance to work with, you can still hold off those players.
Vibin are in a bit of a tricky situation here. There's going to be a Gibby ult coming down on them. And, well, they've been able to at least get out of the way of all of those bombshells dropping. Fenerbahce could be the team that makes their life very difficult here, but there is that one team just at the top of Cage that have just got eyes on everyone right now, so it doesn't matter where you are on the map. If you are anywhere near that Cage, you have the potential to be shot, as Third Impact are gonna pop that totem and choose to get aggressive here. They've been able to down one, and we'll get the execute there as well. It's gonna be Jules from Cooler, so Cooler, after so much success in our earlier games, are going to lose a man early on to Third Impact's sheer and raw aggression.
Yeah, Yuki's going to be taken down to low shields here. The Jenny's going to be destroyed as well. So for Ro and Yuki, got to find themselves a little spot here, which they've managed to just about do to get those meds off and try and fight another day here. 15 squads remaining now in this game. We've only lost 4. Just a reminder, it is a 19-team lobby in our LCQ here. As we are going to see, there's a lot of teams thinking that it's actually going to be moving more central into one of those open areas, maybe at the top of Capacitor, maybe down in that little alleyway that kind of leads down back and around Capacitor, maybe into those grassy areas just outside of labs. But I get the feeling we're going to see a big shift after this next circle, so we're going to have to keep our eyes on that, as we're going to see a very late rotation here from FigFam, who have been playing pretty well in the last few games, especially on King's Canyon. The question is, do they have the meds to make it through here? You would imagine they do, otherwise this is one of the most senseless plays. But they're not stupid, they're clever, they know what they're doing. They're going to get inside that circle, they're going to get those heals off. And now, unfortunately, for our poor old rat, it looks like he might have a little surprise coming around this corner.
Let's go this way.
Yeah, potentially has some company. He's just going to be keeping an eye on that kill feed to ensure that he gets further and further and secures a couple more placement points for the team. It'd be great if he could pick up kill points as well. That would certainly add up to that total and give them the better chance of getting into that top 10 or staying in that top 10. As Lazarus, they've been in this corner for quite some time now. Just having a couple of shots to check there's no squirrels around, hiding in those trees. And they are going to be able to loot up as well, get a couple of more meds to work with, a little bit more ammo potentially, but there is going to be that one team still at the top of the Cage that is really making life hell for everyone else. But as I say that, at the bottom of Cage, we have an engagement, and Vibin are unfortunately down and out. No longer Vibin. Instead, they are very firmly going to be sent back to the lobby.
Yeah, Zamba did get taken down and finished in that fight, though, for Big PP Aura, so they are going to be down to a 2-man complement, and some shots ringing off as well is going to make their life a little bit more difficult, but they do have a gen down to try and at least help them in that situation. You can see Chaos here is actually going to be the last man alive, and he's going to have to zipline out of dodge here, and with very, very low HP, just a couple of shots would be enough to finish him off. Can he make it around this corner? Can he get in the front door? Yes, he can. He's safe. He's home. He can sit on his sofa. He can put the kettle on, and he can pop a medkit at the same time.
Yeah, if I was him, I'd latch up that front door, bolt it, lock it, do everything, and then run, because there is the possibility of that team just following you here. and trying to secure that KP onto you. And unfortunately, well, FigFam, they come through the back door, which I didn't really want to say, but it's come out anyway, and now they have got the KP. Chaos goes down, and we are going to see us down to just 13 squads now.
The back door was breached by FigFam, and they are going to be picking up those KP as the Prowler, the Gold Prowler, is in their hands. Again, one of those drops that you can find here on Kings Canyon. 3 players here up on the high ground, as well as Big PP Aura will be taken down, as confirmed on the right-hand side of our screen, as we're down to our final 13 teams now, and it's Lava City Boys getting very close and intimate with the tree.
There are people like that in the world. 3 kills as well for Saji here, so that means that they are going to be kill leaders. Well, he's the kill leader, should I say. And Lava City Boys, I mean, they were there or thereabouts within the top 10 after a couple of early games. I did worry about maybe they were going to drop off a little bit, but they are a team I would expect to be in the top 10 just from what they've had to offer in other tournaments. And I know the ability they do have as a squad as FigFam, just trying to utilize some of these grenades to do some big damage and maybe force out a couple of rats that might be hiding, as we do have quite a lot of rats. I mean, that's why Ratcam has been following and quite successfully finding many hiding around this map, as there's going to be one taken out just now. Disbelief will fall, and so does Sadyama. 11 squads left now.
Well, here comes the Crypto ult, though, just as we see fights really starting to pick up, and look at those shots with that Gold Prowler. Unfortunately, though, for the Wraith player, he's going to be dropped just before he managed to get around that corner, so FigFam are going to have to get their teammate back up into this game, as YDN are actually going to be converting on that opportunity. And Xander is going to go down now, but the gold bag is going to at least bring them back to half health off of that revive, as we see a Gibraltar trying to sneak in behind Carrie Rubik, who now, as the Watson player, is going to be the last alive, but he is not longed for this world. He will be taken down, as we see the kill feed now continue to light up here as Execute are fighting with Lava City Boys, and it's YDN who are the team who are going to have to move up here through the west side of Hydro down towards Cage. And there is a team which they can shoot in the back quite comfortably here with those scouts, but unfortunately for them, the port was there for them to get away.
Lava City Boys were taken out in that engagement as well, so for all their hiding, they just couldn't get out of dodge and they weren't able to escape that little corner. But now, YDN, they've got so much meds to work with, and you can see they're sharing it around, which is quite intelligent, really. You need to be able to be sharing and caring in your team, otherwise you're going to find yourself in a sticky situation later when someone is screaming for meds at you. Now with 30 seconds with this ring to close, things are going to start to explode here just south of where they are right now.
Nice shots with the wingman from Roger Bodger as Lazarus Esports find themselves in a battle here just by the respawn beacon on the Cage, and the bubble fight is going to keep going down. Nice shots again from Lazarus, and that is the cleanest of clean sweeps. Unfortunately for them, a third-party shot does come in to knock down Roger Bodger, who will have to be revived, but Savage should be able to do so fairly comfortably as he managed to scoot his way into a tight little corner. He's going to put down the portal as well, as it's actually YDN who have managed to move up onto this position and kind of trying to hold them out here, but the portal should allow them to potentially get away here. But it looks like YDN are going to set up a zip line of their own to try and cut that pathway off of the team who they just managed to get some damage down onto. But YDN here, team above them on this high ground. It looks like they want to try and take this high ground from them, as they're just outside that next circle, and with an L-Star in your hand on the Gibraltar. Maybe not the best of guns, but that thing can still do a shift here on Apex Legends. It still can do some big damage.
A little bit of running gun is what we need to see from YDN now, but there's grenades underneath them. The Gibby bubble will be popped just to try and survive, but they can't get out of all these shots that are raining down from various different locations. YDN are just falling like flies. Niso's going to be the only remaining player. Outsiders, again, with a little bit of a height advantage, but they are right on the edge of this circle, so you can see they're trying to use any sort of tree, any sort of rock that they can hide behind just to shield up, because they are being pressured by several different teams right now. We're down to just 6. Big Chunk Funk has gone down, so that means Execute are now out of this lobby. But Blast GG is going to be the new kill leader. 4 kills for him.
Mistral popping about here. I think it was a little bit of a misplay on the Gibby bubble there. I thought he maybe thought the zone was a little bit closer than it was, but throwing that Gibby bubble essentially into the zone didn't give him much chance to survive, as Yasilta is going to land a few R9 shots of his own with the 2 times, giving him a little bit of range, as Blast does manage to miss, unfortunately, that final Kraber shot, so he's going to have to swap out here for another weapon. The only problem is he can't find one that takes his fancy at the moment. Finalized, another team who are in a great position towards this end circle up on that high ground. And here comes third impact, I believe, as the crypto ult is going to hit. Here comes the Revenant push as well. One will get sent back, but look at the damage that's been done already. One knockdown onto Kader, and surely this is going to be a clean sweep here for third impact. It is, and Outsiders will go down here in this game number 5.
Something popped up there, which was terrifying. I don't know what it was, but we can ignore it for now. 5 squads remaining, and third impact are doing third impact things. And as you say, when the Revenant hits, oh, it hits good. YDN down to just 1. They're going to be ratting their way to try and survive into maybe top 3 to get some more placement points here. And it looks like he's just going to be in the next circle if he edges forward a little bit more. Bodyguards also down just to 1. So third impact, one of the most healthy squads right now, and their aggression on Kings Canyon is starting to pay off, and here comes some more damage from them again. This should be easy pickings for them, but I don't think they have to drop into this bubble. They've got the high ground. They've got everything they need to win this game right now, Mark.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of rats on the map. Phoenix has done a fantastic job, to be honest with you, to get into that top 5 position from that. He was one of the rats that we were watching, and unfortunately had to be front and center stage for the poetry that did come out. But Finalized still in this fight as well. The issue for them is they do have, of course, the team that is above them, third impact. But here comes the push. No regard for anyone's safety here. Third impact, they do drop. The Revenant will be taken down, but it's KP for days for them. You can hear the shields being cracked. Finalized still very much alive as the Gibraltar is going to dive in here onto third impact. But even though they've lost Ballon G, there's still a 2-man in this situation as the Wraith has a Peacekeeper, and that's a big chunky shot onto Zeke.
One hell of a shot, but here comes YDN, the final remaining member, also with a Mastiff of his own, but he is going to go down. And Jazz now can get this res. And third impact still going to be in the perfect position. Just 2 squads left now, and I think it might just be a rat that they're going up against.
So now the question is, where does the rat reside? And it is not a rat. It's actually a full team. Exorcism here, who are crouching down into labs and waiting until the last second to portal out. The question is, can they land without taking too much damage as a 3-man? That would be massive if they managed to reset here in third impact. I think the last thing that they were expecting was a team to be portaling on them in those last moments. Exorcism, though, not being able to execute on this play, and it looks like Zeke and Jazz are going to be able to clutch up in this moment, withhold that final push, and yes, they do. Third impact. It was a little bit of a surprise to them to see that team up in the air falling onto them, but they managed to hold on, they managed to clutch up, and they will be your champion.
So we're just Exorcism hiding in labs that whole time, just healing up and waiting, and then once they ran out of heals, they were like, well, I guess it's time to go. Not a bad time to go when there's only 2 squads remaining and they're one of them. So some good placement points picked up by playing a different way to approach Apex Legends, but it is a perfectly acceptable way. It's a survival battle royale after all, so I have the utmost respect for them doing so. But in the end, third impact, their aggression was just so strong, and this composition is proving to be very successful when no one else really is going for that comp right now in this lobby. And this brings me to the point I was saying about what Snipedown brought up on Twitter, that if just one team is running that Revenant and Crypto composition, they can really just stomp through a lobby and take full advantage of a lot of passive play elsewhere, and no one else really challenging them with aggression.
I completely agree with you. I think it's being shown here that if you are a little bit like Caustic was, you know, before the shift in meta, before the patch that we saw the Revenant Crypto combo kind of really becoming an effect, where if you were the only Caustic in a lobby, you had a lot of success. We saw it from Alliance in Europe, where they kind of championed that little meta shift themselves. But third impact here, clutching up in these last moments. This was the 1v1 that was won by third impact, and just think, if he doesn't manage to get that beautiful headshot at the end there, then this turns out to be a very different game. But Zeke did manage to clutch up. Third impact become your champion, which leaves us with just one more game to go in the GLL Masters Summer Last Chance Qualifier. And yeah, I mean, for some teams, this is going to be sway. I mean, whatever you want to call it, time. It's going to be horrible for them, and I'm sure a few teams are going to be extremely disappointed, and a few teams are going to be absolutely elated come the end of our final game.
Yeah, there are a lot of teams who are going to be very close to that kind of 10th spot that can be competing for it, and they just need that one, not even like amazing game, just an okay game, a good game where they pick up a decent amount of KP and get to a respectable placement point position. For a team like Na'Vi, I mean, we're getting closer and closer now to them being out, really. They are going to need to have an amazing game if they are going to be able to rescue where they currently reside in this leaderboard. And we'll be able to check it out, of course, later when we get into the next one after this break. But honestly, I'm scared because I thought that Na'Vi were going to be a team that were there in the grand finals, Mark.
I agree with you, and it's up to Na'Vi to make that dream a reality. But for now, we're going to have another break. We've only got one more game to go today, so don't go anywhere. The last chance qualifier will roll on, and we'll find out who our top 10 teams are. Welcome back, ladies and gents, to the GLL Masters Summer. Dan Gaskin is still here, still fighting strong after my poetic performance in the previous game. But the teams are still fighting strong as well as we go down to our final game now, Dan. And yeah, for some teams, as I say, there's going to be elation. For some teams, it's going to be massive disappointment. It's the final chance for them to get into our grand finals this weekend.
This is it. When we said at the start of the broadcast that we expected games 5 and 6 to kind of pick up the pace and see a lot of action, maybe see a lot of teams try and do something a little bit different. Game 5 was fairly standard. This one, I now think we're going to see a couple of teams pull the finger out a little bit because they have to. Otherwise, they are going to find themselves not in the grand finals. This was the scoreboard after game 5. Then Third Impact topping the match with 12 placement points after their win and 9 kills to boot. Finalized 12 kills. They were able to pick up quite a lot and also with decent amount of placement points to work with. A team like Lava City Boys are doing pretty well. But for Na'Vi, finishing all the way down in 11th, they did pick up 3 kills, so at least they were able to get some placement, some kill points, so that will get them up the overall leaderboards ever so slightly. As a reminder, they were in 17th before this previous game, so they need to try and improve on that to get closer to 10, because if you don't know how this works, this is the last chance qualifier for the finals that are happening this weekend after 4 weeks of action already. The top 10 in this lobby will progress to those grand finals. And Mark, well, here's the overall leaderboard.
And Outsiders are dominating it at the moment. You can see, although Third Impact with that change in comp have really started to close that gap at the top. But those two teams are pretty much done and dusted. They will qualify, and you will have to say maybe Cooler Exorcism still very much qualified as well with their performances so far. But it's Lava City Boys, Dead Inside, Fenerbahce, Big PP Aura, I think, who are still in striking distance here. I think Na'Vi, unfortunately, might be out of the running with just 11 points on the board and 26 points is 10th place at the moment. So for those teams, they're going to have to hope that some of those teams ahead of them inside that top 10 don't pick up any points. And for me, there's one way to guarantee that. It's kind of the Hail Mary, right? Are you going to land with them? Are you going to try and contest them? Or no, you're just going to try and play your own game? It'll be interesting to see how this final game does play out.
We're going to need to see teams like Na'Vi, Execute, Purge realistically get a top 2 finish with high kill points if they are going to be able to get into this top 10. It's a shame to see a team like Na'Vi not be able to get into the grand finals because, like, I mean, in general, like an organization, an esports team, Na'Vi is massive, right? And for them not to be in the grand finals, it is a shame. But you know what? These things happen. Sometimes teams will underperform, and it looks like this is going to be that situation for Na'Vi, whereas we've got some teams who are overperforming right now, and this is going to be tight. We've got a couple of teams who are very close to 10th place. Lava City Boys, I'm going to be keeping an eye as we now drop for the last time in this last chance qualifier, and it's going to be Kings Canyon yet again, Mark. And well, we'll start things off with Third Impact as the winners of the previous game, and of course the one team that is running this very much aggressive composition with the Revenant and the Crypto. I've been enjoying watching what they have to offer, because not only do they have the aggression, but they also have the ability to back it up.
Yeah, they have the synergy as a team, which is, you know, so vital to this composition working for you. And it's almost, you know, reminiscent of what we've been seeing in North America. Like you say, TSM have kind of championed this, and we do see a little bit of almost copycat, I would say. Sometimes when something becomes successful, you see other teams kind of picking up and seeing how it's going to work for them. And one team, as you say, who's had success with it since they changed, even in this tournament, is, of course, Third Impact. So it'd be interesting to see when that grand final does roll around, exactly where their composition will lie as far as its mix-up will be concerned. But we see the Pathfinder Beacon here, and it looks like we might be having one of those end circles out towards Golden Sands between Bunker and Salvage. We saw that in the ALGS super regionals this weekend in the EMEA region, and it'll be interesting to see if there is a hard pull either side, but we do have a potential end zone right in the center of where that circle is showing. So a lot of teams to rotate and a lot of chokes to move through if you're coming from the east side of the map. Of teams on the west side, excuse me, as my compass was wrong, we're gonna see a fairly comfortable rotation into some of those buildings for them.
Always remember, Mark, never eat shredded wheat, or you can go for naughty elephant squirt water. You
I know
decide.
which way it goes. I know which way it goes. It's just I'm thick, so that's the issue here, right? It doesn't matter. I remember the order. I am just stupid.
Don't put yourself down like that. You're great at poems. That's all that matters. One thing with a circle like this, if they do think it is going to be quite like an open ending, that is going to change the dynamic of this game and maybe change the approach certain teams have and how aggressive they want to be. If they feel like this is going to be quite an open space for that final circle, that becomes it becomes a little bit more difficult to predict and a little bit more difficult to actually guarantee yourself placement points. So instead, you have to then say, okay, well, let's not focus on the placement as much. Let's actually get aggressive here. Let's try and pick up some big kill points. But that's all well and good to say, but when you're in the final game and maybe you really need those placement points to actually get into the finals, it's not as easy to actually put pen to paper, as Over the Top now are going to be under a little bit of pressure here, but there is an R99 available, but Streamy is going to go down, as well as Blood Rain and Finalized are on top of them right now, and it's a 3 versus 1, and unfortunately, Over the Top are, well, they're thrown over the top ropes, Mark, because they're out.
Yeah, the Battle Royale in more than one way, and as you say, thrown over the top rope, and that is going to be the end of their tournament, unfortunately for them, but I'm sure that they'll come back stronger in the next tournaments that they are involved with. But Weiger's another team who, to be honest with you, really have disappointed a little bit so far today, right at the bottom of the table as well, and I think that Arcstar just summed up everything about how their day has gone so far.
Whereas for Bodyguards, they're of course one of these teams that are already in the top 10. They're in 8th at the moment, so they could do with surviving all of this kerfuffle at the start. They need to stop this bombardment from Weigers. A decent amount of damage. Will whip out the wingman for some shots, but has to back off and go down, as the rest of the team will heal up and reevaluate how they're going to get the push. There's going to be one falling on either side right now, and Weiger seem to have the advantage and might be able to get the res off here, but they are going to back off because here comes Na'Vi, Mark. They need a big game here, and this could be some huge KP for them.
They do need a big game, and they're hitting some big shots as well, as 9imps is going in and trying to finish off this. Gibby does get the beatdown onto him to finish off that fight, and that is good aggression. And look at the composition, Dan.
Yep.
We are seeing the Wraith, Crypto, Revenant composition here from Na'Vi. They know the situation they're in. They know they have to be aggressive, and this is the comp to make that dream happen.
So they were on 11 points coming into this game. In 10th was 26, so they're already 15 points behind, and that is not even giving any points, of course, to those teams that are already in the top 10. So they really need a lot of kill points. I'd say they need maybe 8 to 10 kills as well as a decent placement if they're going to get anywhere near this top 10 position. I mean, I don't want to write the Cinderella story just yet because there's still a long way to go, but at least they have noticed and evaluated that they have to go for a more aggressive comp, and we'll see whether it pays off.
Now you are seeing all those fights going on down there. This is what I expected. A lot of teams know that they have to pull off some miracle plays in this game number 6 in order to get themselves into that grand final. Na'Vi again involved in a fight here, and that might have been a third party who was coming along, having just seen them clean up that fight that was up on the God spot just to their north here in the kind of middle of the river, just outside of Bunker. But Na'Vi managing to survive that. As you can see, Claws actually finish off a team here, and it's Fenerbahce Esports, and Claws has actually managed to pick off a kill onto third Impact as well. So big KP early on here, I do believe, coming in from Na'Vi. And as you say, you don't want to get ahead of ourselves just yet, but this is the start they needed for sure.
Yeah, at least the foundations are there, right? There is the possibility, even if it is very much a stretch right now, as Lava City Boys, who were the closest team to get into the top 10, currently reside in 11th place. They were only 4 points short of YDN. So if they can have a decent placement here, get into maybe the top 5, I'd say that they have a great chance of being able to qualify for the grand finals. But look at all those teams that already reside in that next circle. Only a few outside of just the green circle, let alone just the normal circle without the Pathfinder's help. So a lot of teams are already taking up real estate and realizing that this could be the game that makes or breaks their tournament.
You can see the 4 teams that have been eliminated so far, as we see some beautiful shots with that golden shimmering hemlock from up on this god spot. Now over to Dead inside. Sadyama, Disbelief, and Stanny looking to make their rotation into the next circle. The difficulty here for all these teams involved is that until you get that potential next beacon or see where that fourth ring is going to be closing, third or fourth ring, you don't really know where to set up as they overlook the crossroads in the middle of Kings Canyon, in the middle of their crosser, as one team that's set up for success. And I say success, I'm going to call it a scumbag move, is Purge, who are set up in this building at the moment, just waiting for any noise to see if they can pump anyone that comes in through these doors and try and catch them off guard a little bit.
Yeah, they're trying to catch people out, whereas elsewhere, other people just eyeing up the crossroads. I mean, Blazing Squad said it best when they said, see you at the crossroads, is now there's going to be a little bit of damage here on Finalized. And actually, Blast go down, and he was the kill leader at one point in the last game. So this is going to be quite detrimental for Finalized if they aren't able to pick him back up. But it looks like they're going to have to get out of dodge and retreat here. Otherwise, they might find themselves in a little bit of a sticky situation. But heading towards Marketplace is not going to be good because we already know that Purge are there. They're waiting to pounce.
Looks like Bryn is going to move in to recover that banner and try and get the respawn on the beacon as well. But the issue is there's so many teams around that area at the moment. And getting that respawn off isn't going to be without risk. So over to YDM then, set up in one of these shack buildings in the river. Just actually a little bit more southern on the map, as they're just to the south of the watchtower at River's End. Shots coming through the window as well. And for YDM, they seem to be quite a little bit of a sticky spot here, as they're having multiple teams actually laying down shots. And now Sidious is going to be the last man alive for his team. All of a sudden, things have escalated, and YDN will be taken down, I believe. Last player alive is out of there, and that is bad news for them. I think that's them out of the tournament.
Well, they were in 10th, so not yet. Yet they were 4 points ahead of Lava City boys. We've already seen Fenerbahce eliminated. We've already seen a couple of the teams in the bottom 10 eliminated as well. There is the possibility that they could still survive, but it's a very slim one. That is great news for those teams like Lava City boys, as here comes Purge, getting aggressive, and they do not want to allow this player to escape, running right back into the circle.
Zipline's going to go down. Everything's going to be thrown at this KP. Unfortunately for the Gibby, he's only got short legs and he's trying to get away, but it's going to be surely the end of his game. It is. He's going to be eliminated here as Purge get aggressive on that final kill to make sure they get the complete squad wiped there. So Purge, unfortunately for them, there's a team that's actually followed them into the zone here, and you can see what I mean by aggression and teams knowing that KP are vital in this game. Purge chased down that KP. The only problem was there was a team overlooking them, and that was Finalized, trying to get a little bit cheeky themselves and get involved in that fight.
Madness, but have they now put themselves in a horrible spot where they're going to get shot by various different people? No, it looks like they're okay. Bryn is able to escape with his life, but now they can kind of play gatekeep if they want. But there's only the two of them. I think priority number one has to be getting Blasts back up. And yes, okay, that's going to leave yourself somewhat vulnerable, as teams are going to know you've gone for that respawn. But I think that they really need the full squad of 3 if they're going to make an impact in this game. As here comes Big PP Aura now, and it's going to be aggression from Zammart. Does have the R99 with an R301 in his back pocket. Some real damage there. Carry Rubik will fall. But unfortunately, there's another team here, and everyone is just wanting a piece of this.
Yeah, Itin's going to have to back out here. He knows that his team are dead, and Cooler Esports are going to say, thank you very much. We are the best party. We are the third party, and we are coming to crash this party that is happening up at the top of Airbase. So for them, high ground is key. High ground is master. And that was fairly simple for them, just waiting for the damage to be done before they stole those KP away. ASCII with the final one, and that is the perfect way to sum things up. Watson just shrugs his shoulders and said, what else do you want me to do?
Yeah, things are tough, especially when it's in the last game. If we can get the kind of scoreboard of eliminated teams up as well, that would be great, just so we can look at who's out. So Exorcism, Figvam, YDN, Third Impact eliminated. So Fenerbahce out of the tournament. Weigers out of the tournament. Bodyguards were in 8th before this one. YDN were in 10th before this one. Figvam were in 6th. I would say that Figvam should be safe. For a team like Exorcism, they're going to be okay as well because they were in 4th coming into this. Realistically, we're looking at YDN and maybe Bodyguards as 2 of the vulnerable teams here, as unfortunately, Big PP Aura are also going to be taken out. And they were in 14th, so that's probably them not qualifying for finals as well, Mark.
Do you remember the song by the Klaxons, Golden Sands?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that one up there. That's what every single time that we head here on Kings Canyon, that song is replaying on a loop in my head. The Outsiders, who have been essentially looping themselves back into first place every single game that we've had so far today. They have 3 wins under their belt out of the 5 games that we've had in total. Are actually going to be inside that circle where they think the circle is going to be. And currently, Bryn is having a sprinting race with this circle and just about manages to stay alive as the last man alive here for finalized. They did manage to get that revive onto their teammate, but at what cost? Because Team Purge now surely have to be in position to finish off this kill. It's a 2v1 situation. It's just a case of not getting split and making a mistake, but the Mastiff is in the hands of that player. So you can see someone's going to have to wait for his teammate to come in. That will be the final kill.
Okay.
Nice and simple. Bryn will fall, but here comes the third party again. And Purge, although they were feeling good, Dead Inside want to make them die inside of Market.
And this is a huge fight as well. Dead Inside currently in 12th, Purge in 15th. And Purge, they were kill leaders, but they go down. And that's just going to be the one player left on Purge. They're into the top 10. They did have 5 kills between them. So this means that they are slowly but surely edging themselves closer to that top 10. So we need something huge here from the final rat on Purge if they are going to be able to get to those finals. Whereas for Dead Inside, a real chance for them to potentially push their way in, especially the fact that YDN have already been eliminated. And they will know that. I'm sure they would have been keeping a keen eye on that kill feed so that they have an idea of how aggressive they're going to have to play, how much kill points they have to push for. But really, Lava City Boys, Dead Inside, and Team Purge are the 3 teams that have the chance to get into the top 10 that weren't already.
Na'Vi are one of those teams who are still looking for KP. You can see 3 in the hands of 9imps here as he's going to be trying to push onto this team, the other side of Bunker. We had to look at the scan from the Pathfinder beacon as well, and it's a big pull here to the west of Kings Canyon to Bunker Town is where we're going to be heading, and hopefully for Na'Vi, they're going to be heading towards KP Town. For Na'Vi fans who are in the chat and who are watching at home, Lazarus are on the right side of Bunker as well, so they're going to have to be pretty careful here, Lazarus, that they don't get spotted out by Na'Vi moving through and get hit by that crypto drone and the Revenant ult. But the longer that it goes on, the less likely that Na'Vi are going to be able to use that death protection and have essentially a free push to take on that team outside. Looks like Na'Vi have decided to reset, but now they've got to wait now for those ults to come up again before they have that advantage in the fight.
Yeah, they need to reset, get that ult, and start to get aggressive again because they need KP as well as placement points to have any chance. I mean, at least their possibilities of getting into the top 10 is made somewhat easier by the fact that YDN didn't pick up much points whatsoever. Lazarus are still alive, though. They're in 9th, and if they can just pick up a decent amount of placement points, they should be safe. So a couple of teams who are kind of teetering towards dropping out of this top 10, and they have nothing they can do about it. They just have to sit and watch and hope, and that is such a horrible feeling. I mean, I don't really know what I'd prefer. Rather be in Na'Vi's spot where I'm desperately looking for kills, or a team just hoping that everyone else gets eliminated and dies.
Dead Inside are trying to push on this team. You can see the Wraith having to queue out of that position, and there is a team actually sneaking behind this rock, but big damage there with the flatline is going to break those shields. And now you're going to see the slide come in, cleans up the Watson, hits a massive shot, 98 as well coming in. Big damage there from Disbelief. Stanny X and Disbelief surely have to move in here to finish that one off. Sadyama going to have to be rezzed in this situation. Can they manage to get him back up before the third party comes in? It looks like they will do. They'll get him back into this game, and there'll be armor swaps available for them. So a great push there from Dead Inside, just wiping the other team off the face of Kings Canyon.
If my calculations are correct, that pushes Dead Inside into the top 10 above YDN as well. So should be eliminating YDN at this point. So it's a shame for them after doing so well to reside in that top 10 throughout the 5 matches. But match 6, they just fell short. And now other teams are taking advantage of that. And also another team that has a chance to break in is Team Purge. They've been able to get the res on one of the players. And okay, he is getting chunked away in that circle, but maybe he can just about survive, which he does. And all right, lifeline, not literally lifeline, but still a lifeline for Purge. But one of the teams that they'd like to see wiped out would be Lazarus Esports, but Lazarus have done so well to get themselves into this position here with this next circle.
And you got the Watson as well, so they're going to be able to put those fences down, get that gen down, and feel pretty comfortable with those teams having to rotate in. Na'Vi, though, this is the scary thing. Not only do they have a Kraber, they have the Crypto ult as well, they have the Revenant ult, and if they want to, and they time this right, they can completely wipe Lazarus out of that building. So Na'Vi with some decisions to make here. They need the KP. Can they get a knock with this Kraber? Big opportunity here for 9imps to hit that shot, and he just narrowly misses it by a whisker on that Wraith.
I think if they catch wind that it is Lazarus, then they might push, just because they know they need to take them out of the tournament, really, to give themselves the best chance of getting into that top 10. Anyone who's in that 9th and 10th spot, but I'm still not able to hit that shot just yet, and I am surprised that Lazarus are keep poking him, because you've got to be careful. If you get hit by that Kraber, it is not going to be a good situation for you, because the rest of the team is going to swarm, especially with the Revenant ult available.
Outsiders then inside that next circle. You can see that there. They're going to be pretty comfortable. Execute trying to make their way in as well, but you can see the shots ringing out from inside of Bunker Town. I think all the teams in there are saying, unfortunately, the hotel is full and you don't have a reservation to make your way in. For Execute, that means you're going to have to rebook somewhere else.
And it means it's going to be like a stingy hotel as well. It smells a little bit and there's like blood on the towels. No one wants to go to one of those hotels, but they might have to end their way. I mean, it happens in some hotels. I'm just going to say, Mark, I've experienced that in my lifetime of staying in hotels. I know it was a horrible... Why would you remind me of it? It's very traumatic.
You brought it up.
I know. I definitely did, but you didn't need to just enhance that point. I was moving on. I was forgetting.
Okay.
Right. Before Execute, they need a big game, Mark. They're in 16th at the moment, or they were coming into this game. So they've done well getting this far in terms of placement points, but they need to get that little bit further, and they need to pick up some KP to really put pressure on those who are in the top 10. And, well, this Na'Vi story, it's still alive, but they have to be picking up kills soon. Otherwise, it just won't be enough.
Well, Lazarus are going to be picking up KP themselves, and you have to wonder, oh, did he mean to go back through that portal? I don't know if he did. Managed just to get out of dodge there, Ro, and I think he might be able to get a res on his two teammates with that portal, so they're going to have to be careful here in this situation. Na'Vi now making that play. If we can go back over to Na'Vi, that'll be huge, because Disbelief has been taken down. They have popped the totem as well to have that death protection. The question is, can they finish those kills? Na'Vi using that totem, using that ultimate. And the important thing to remember here is using it now means they won't have it available unless they have some ultimate accelerates to pop for quite a while here. So Na'Vi, even though they're inside that next circle, maybe don't have all of the advantages to hand that they would want with this composition.
Na'Vi certainly making a statement here, trying to make a play to get into these grand finals. It's going to be so difficult, but they're giving it their all in this final game, but it might just be too little, too late. As elsewhere, Lava City Boys are still alive. They were in 11th. They would have taken over YDM by this point, and maybe even catching up with the likes of Lazarus, and even Bodyguards could be at threat, despite the fact they had somewhat of an advantage over these teams that were in the bottom 10. So if Lava City Boys can get into this top 5, pick up a couple of KP, we might be seeing them in the grand finals, as well as this circle is getting tighter and tighter. There is a death box to work with, and you can pick up a couple of meds and maybe a little bit of utility. As well, with only 7 squads left, we're going to start to see gunfire soon, Mark.
Yeah, Na'Vi getting shots in it again, but they just can't quite get the downs at the moment. That's kind of been the story here for Na'Vi. A lot of damage being done, but not being able to get the finish. But there is one, but I'm not sure if they actually managed to get that kill or the thirst onto it. So interested to see if that goes towards their account, as we see, unfortunately, that grenade hitting Sadriel really hard and knocking him down. Teammate's going to drop down here to try and get the revive, and Cat Ryan's going to have to be in position here to try and hold off the potential push, but so many different elevations. Na'Vi now back on board with them. 6 squads remaining in this game and trying to land some nades onto Lava City Boys as well to try and knock them down. Sadriel really is struggling to stay alive, but he's getting the med kit off, and this is huge for their opportunity.
It needs to be a win, really, for Na'Vi, but Lava City Boys and both Team Purge still have the chance to push their way into top 10 as well, which might push Na'Vi out, even if Na'Vi had that giant mammoth game that we said they needed right at the start of this lobby. Only 37 seconds before Ring 6 starts to close in, and Outsiders are one of these 6 squads, and we know how good they've been in the late game as well. So they are just keeping an eye and making sure that there is no easy rotation for anyone into an advantageous position in this circle.
So a few moments of calm here, 21 seconds as we see, I believe, Cooler Yuki has managed to sneak his way into position here, and being the Pathfinder as well, he can grapple in late as these teams start to fight towards that end circle. So don't quite count him out yet as far as making a bit of a play towards the end of this game, but fighting is ringing out across some of the other teams here in High Desert. As he now makes his move, but Lava City Boys are going to be above them. Can he get the knock? No, he can't get the finish quite, unfortunately. And now he will be taken down at the hands of the Ring and Lava City Boys above them. But is there enough of an opening here for a team to push, as Outsiders now have to sneak their way in, and they've found themselves a little corner to play here.
What can Outsiders do to try and disrupt the chances of the likes of Na'Vi, who needed that amazing game? They are in a decent position here, do have plenty of buildings to be able to work around and have a lot of cover. They can kind of wait, they can kind of third party, but do they have enough kill points? This could be a huge kill point for them. They so desperately need to pick up as much KP as possible. The Revenant ult is going to be popped now. They're going to get aggressive. They want that KP, but they portal away. We're down to just 4 squads, and Na'Vi, they are out for blood. They want everything here, Mark.
Yeah, and they're going to get the jump onto Lava City Boys as well. One player will get reset. 9imps is going to go in as well, but no one got downed in that push there from Na'Vi. Lava City Boys managed to reset every single player in the Revenant Ultimate. So that means Na'Vi, again, for everything they've done in this game, for all of the damage that they've dealt onto other teams, they still aren't able to get those so valuable kill points on the board. And that is massive for them. It's really unfortunate. And another day, they really could have wiped this lobby, but 3 squads now remaining. Lazarus Esports are one of those teams who've managed to work their way into this corner. And with that ring closing in around 50 seconds and no shots ringing out here, it looks like it could be a final circle kind of game.
Have Na'Vi done enough is the real question. 15 points behind YDN they were at the start of this. They have a significant amount of kill points, and they're going to pick up some big placement points from this top 3 already. First place, and I'd say it might just be there for them, but there are a couple of teams outside that top 10 who have also had big games. So this really could come down to whether they finish 3rd, 2nd, or 1st, as to whether they actually miraculously will progress to those grand finals. But 15 seconds just of quiet now, as portals have been set up. Lava City Boys in quite an advantageous spot in terms of having the high ground. But we'll see how this one unfolds, Mark. And this is going to be a very tense moment for all these teams.
I think we need to watch Na'Vi in these last moments because they have the game in their hands. They're the closest to that circle. They're looking pretty comfortable. And they are the team who could really make a play here just inside that circle. Wait until that last second to take that fight as they make their move in now. 9imps is going to be the last man to go in. Unfortunately, one player will get down here. Claws, it's Mayhem, it's Bedlam, and Na'Vi somehow managed to clutch up in the last game of the LCQ here. What a performance from this lineup. But the question is, have they done enough to pull off the Cinderella story here and make it into the finals? What a game from Na'Vi. Wow.
I mean, like, technically, via my maths, I think, yes, they've done enough, but it's those teams that were just outside the top 10 that might push them out. Like Lava City Boys, for example, they were in 11th. They will get up into the top 10. Dead Inside, they had a good game. They'll push themselves into the top 10. So it's those teams that were still above Na'Vi gaining points that might push them out. This is going to be really close, and I can't wait to see the totals. They may have done enough. You'd think a victory plus the amount of kills they've got should be enough to do it. I can't believe they've left it until match 6 to actually finally turn up. And who knew? It was just a little bit of aggression. Maybe they just needed a little bit of a kick up the backside, and playing the Revenant and Crypto as their composition, it really worked out for them.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, if they've managed to pull this off, it really is a little bit like, you know, the Undertaker coming out of his coffin and sitting upright. It's been unbelievable stuff, rags to riches for Na'Vi in this particular tournament. We'll look back on the highlights of that game, but I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? Are the teams who were ahead of them, did they pick up enough points to hold Na'Vi out, to essentially gatekeep them from making it into our grand finals? We'll have to wait and see until the scores do come in, but I think you're right. It was the change of compositions. The first time they've run it, and, well, look at the results of it. Revenant Crypto putting up big kills, and confidence for them. Maybe that's all they needed. That first win was massive.
Sometimes teams just perform when their backs are against the wall and they know they need to step up. People thrive in these pressure scenarios, and it looks like that might be the case for Na'Vi, as they made that heroic play. I mean, we called it right at the start, said it was going to be a Cinderella story, but it was. Like, the fact that they just kept progressing more and more as the game went on, I was expecting it to end at any point. Like, one of their pushes just wouldn't be successful, and we'd be like, well, good effort from Na'Vi, but they weren't able to quite do it. With a victory, honestly, I think it might be there for them, and I'm really excited to see how the results look and how the points look with these standings. Shout out to Dead Inside and Lava City Boys with some big games as well that may be enough to get them into the top 10. plenty of teams are in contention for it, and that was a great match 6, a really entertaining one to watch. I love how the final circle played out as well. I love how the Revenant ult can sometimes change things, and how even Na'Vi having that aggressive push, Lava City Boys did enough in the initial push to kind of shut them down and send them back and say, look, no, we're going to reset. We're going to do this final circle properly. Thank you very much. No cheat codes, no Revenant ults for you. But fair play to Na'Vi. Very impressed. Even if they don't get into the top 10, which I think they do, I'm really impressed with how they approached that match 6.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait to see what those results are. Of course, we're going to look back on the highlights of Game 4 and Game 5 as soon as possible as well. Just remind ourselves of exactly what happened on Kings Canyon after our World's Edge performance in our first 3 games. And game number 4, excuse me, our first game was Outsiders again, just continuing their run from World's Edge over to Kings Canyon.
Yeah, just carrying on that success and showing us that they can perform on both maps, really. And I think a lot of teams were able to do so. I mean, there were certainly some teams that were more comfortable on World's Edge than Kings Canyon, but for the most part, it seemed like there was a lot of consistency across the board for a lot of these top teams like Outsiders, for example. And some really good early engagements, some big early fights that were either won or lost down to some clutch moments, and it made for a very exciting match number 4, which kicked Kings Canyon off exactly the way it should, with some fast-paced, high-octane action.
This was Cooler Esports. This was the final battle. We came down to the 1v1 between, I believe it was Third Impact. It was actually Outsiders, excuse me, and it was Yasilta who managed to clip him in the eye and take him down with that final wingman shot. And again, the 1v1, we've had a couple of those today, and it was won there by Outsiders. But Game 5 was another game that kind of surprised us and kept things rolling. And at this point, I have to keep telling the story. There's a few teams after this game that's done and probably thought, well, that's our tournament over. But Game 6 really showed that it wasn't. Yeah,
I mean, Na'Vi were in 17th after this game. Bearing in mind, FlexGang didn't even play, so they were the 3rd from bottom after the first 5 matches. So it really would be something if they do make it in. But this was when we saw Third Impact showing how impressive they can be with the composition of Revenant plus Crypto that they were able to carry through from the 3rd game of World's Edge, and it was still successful in the first 2 games of Kings Canyon for them. YDN had an okay game, but then were eliminated a little bit later, which might have been the real downfall as to why they probably are eliminated out of this competition now. But it was again Outsiders showing their aggression, getting in other people's faces and winning some big fights. But the Revenant ult really just, it was so different and so impactful on Kings Canyon in compared to World's Edge. I think that's why we saw Na'Vi switch things up in match number 6, because they saw how successful Third Impact were being with it.
Third Impact are here, and they were the winners of our game number 5, as the last team did come out of the portal there from Labs at the last second to try and upset things. But I'm hearing in our ears that we're hopefully getting the scores done before too long. So we will, of course, know who our top 10 teams will be going into our grand finals. But I think for Outsiders, they're kind of the takeaway for me here. Going into that grand final, surely a team that's going to carry so much momentum, especially with the lack of time we have between now, the last chance qualifier, and this weekend. They're going to be dangerous.
They are going to be dangerous, but I mean, the scary factor is, like, they looked so dominant in these lobbies, yet there's technically 10 teams that are better than them that were already in the grand finals, 10 teams that were able to secure more points across 4 weeks. So if Outsiders are going to do that in this lobby, imagine what those other 10 teams are going to do now. These next 10 teams are going to be invited into the grand finals. Like, we're going to have some really exciting games when it comes to this weekend. Some very close affairs, I'm sure, but also some of the bigger teams really just thriving in an environment where they can put some big KP down and get some decent placement points.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be something to look forward to. And these are the scores. This is how we stand. And these are our 10 teams who will make it through. This is the result of the last game before we tease you a little bit with that scoreboard. Na'Vi,
oh my God,
25 points, 13 kills, and 12 placement points with that first place. Yeah, massive from them. Team Purge in second.
Yeah, I mean, that is more than enough for Na'Vi. That is going to project them potentially into the top 5, let alone the top 10.
Wow.
Like, they needed a monster game, and that was the monster of monsters. 13 kills is insane. The aggression worked. For other teams that maybe struggled because of that, YDN Esports only picking up the 1 point means they are not going to be in the top 10. Fenerbahce aren't going to be able to find themselves in the top 10. Bodyguards potentially dropping out, but this is it. These are the top 10 teams that are qualifying through. Na'Vi up into 7th, but look, it still was quite close. I mean, they only got in by 6 points over Bodyguards. Lava City Boys managed to creep their way in. Unfortunately, Bodyguards, Purge, and Dead Inside, they will fall out. But some big names getting in, Mark. And I mean, credit to Na'Vi. They pulled it out when they need to.
Yeah, that was, pulling it out of the bag in every single way possible. I mean, before this game, Na'Vi were dead and buried, but no. They remind us all of how good they can be. A huge jump up from 17th to 7th with that monster game 6. And sometimes you need that, right? You need that one big game to turn your tournament around. And Na'Vi will be one of the teams who make it into our grand finals this weekend. Outsiders, Third Impact, Caller Esports, Exorcism, Lazarus finalized, Vibin and Figvam, and of course, Lava City Boys by the skin of their teeth. Shout out to those guys from the EMEA region for making it in as well. They will be your 10 teams from our last chance qualifier to make it through. And unfortunately, for the teams on the right-hand side, it won't be enough to be joining us in our final.
But an exciting last chance qualifier. I mean, we knew it was going to be full of action. We knew it was going to be full of a lot of ups and downs for teams, and Na'Vi especially. What a great story. I mean, for the first 5 matches, they looked woeful. Let's be completely honest. We'll call them out. They looked dreadful. But match 6, suddenly they look like a different squad. And if I'm them, I'm looking at this competition and saying, okay, what can we take away from this particular match, this last chance qualifier? How can we move that into the finals? Because if they play like they did in the first 5 games, they're not going to have a chance of decent prize money in the finals. They're not going to be able to rescue themselves with just one miraculous game. They're going to need to be a bit more consistent in what is going to be a much tougher lobby when we get to grand finals on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be something to keep an eye out for. As I say, we've got so many talented teams in our grand final. Just a reminder as well that the Americas LCQ will be coming up tonight as well. So keep your eyes on that one, as that's certainly going to be a lot of fun. And Dan, I actually need to just quickly get something in, because I said no more poetry, right? And I'm sorry, by the way, everyone. I'm sorry, but this is actually from the Observers. All right, they've provided you all with Rapcam. They've brought it to the party. They've done a fantastic job. So this is from the Observers. I am just the vessel for this poetry. It says, "Here I sit, catch my breath for a bit. My mates get shot, so I discovered this spot. Observing this game won't ever be the same. Pleasing the chat by showing this rap. If we have a little bit of luck, you also might see a duck." Because obviously the duck just popped up for no reason. So shout out to the observing team, of course, and all the production who have been involved in the process today. Absolutely amazing job. But what are your takeaways, your final takeaways from today, Dan?
My final takeaway is, if a rat is hiding in the water, then maybe we could call it a duck, like we call a rat hiding in the tree a squirrel. My final takeaways are that you should never believe you're out, no matter how far you are behind. Like Na'Vi, they have done something that some people would consider to be impossible. Like what they have done there, 13 kills plus a win. Like we knew they needed a win plus big kill points. If they hadn't have got the win there, they are dropping a few more points. If they hadn't have got like just maybe 3 more kills, then they wouldn't have got into that top 10. So I cannot stress enough what an amazing game that was from them. But I also want to say that they need to be better across the board and consistency if they're going to be able to perform in the finals. I'm excited for the finals. I think we have 10 teams who deserve to be there in the finals, joining the 10 who are already there to progress. But it was hella fun, and I'm sure that the finals are definitely going to provide a lot of entertainment.
All right, then. That's going to do it all for the EMEA Last Chance Qualifier. Thank you all so much for watching. It's been a lot of fun, Dan, to have you alongside me, bringing all the action today. And yeah, if you're Na'Vi, John Cena said it best, right? Never give up. But for now, that's going to do us, and we'll see you back for the Americas.